Chapter 1164. Some voyageurs had only been heard of, while some had participated in the encirclement and suppression of them. If the dimensional crevice was compared to a new continent, then the void origin demons were the natives of this new continent to the transcendent. The voyageurs were roughly equivalent to the tribal leaders of these native tribes. The powerful voyageurs could easily tear apart transcendence, and only the senior transcendents had the means to resist the voyageurs, but this also depended on the voyageurs' abilities. The dimensional crevice was relatively fair, and gave all kinds of favors to the later transcendents, not to mention these primordial demons that had originally existed in the dimensional crevice. In front of the transcendents was a memory image of the suspected voyageurs that Solomon had extracted from himself. Each of these transcendents was a figure who had transcended in their respective domains, and their eyes were quite sharp. Therefore, they could easily sense that the void progenitor in Solomon's memory was trembling. This progenitor should have just been born. Although it's far more powerful than ordinary primordial demons, it's far from reaching the normal level of an progenitor. Therefore, it's not necessarily a voyageurs. If it's a powerful void progenitor, it can also make it tremble. The voice came from a dark shadow. But its body wasn't completely dark, and there were many nebula-like cyclones on the dark shadow's body. It was a senior transcendent, and had participated in the early war of the transcendents to eliminate the voyageurs. It gave its opinion. It's been a long time since the last war. The voyageurs have basically been wiped out in that war. If there are any left, they should be holed up in the depths of the crevice. Besides, the Lost Garden is our territory. If a voyageurs really appear or are born, the sovereigns should have sensed it. This view quickly gained the approval of many senior transcendents, and for those who hadn't really fought against the voyageurs, they wouldn't recklessly participate in such a discussion. If they knew, they knew. If they didn't know, they didn't know. These people had transcended in their respective domains, and had an innate pride. They wouldn't talk indiscriminately just to attract the attention of others, which would only make them a laughingstock. However, the discussion about the voyageurs ended here. The transcendents were only interested in the voyageurs. After all, they were in the dimensional crevice, and couldn't easily land in different spacetimes. Some had been holed up in their homes, and were almost moldy. It was difficult for a single sovereign to gather all the transcendents, especially Archimedes, who belonged to the scientific side of science, and didn't have much attraction to the mysterious transcendents. The loss of Noah, the only person who could control the ark, was naturally one of the reasons why they were able to gather so many transcendents this time. However, the most important reason was that many of the transcendents had already become moldy. Before they set off, they still needed to make a lot of preparations. However, it was clear that before that, the throne had already been prepared. For the moldy transcendents, the only two things they needed to do was to smile and start the battle. Yu Danxiang couldn't help but take a few more glances at the bewitching man wearing a red gown. If not for Musashi saying that he was a man, Yu Danxiang would have fallen for him. Naturally, the transcendents were all beautiful existences. Long Yang, that was the name of the bewitching man. It seemed that he had come to talk to Hidden Sword. To Fish Balchong's surprise, the girl from Zong clan, who had always been cold and indifferent to everyone, actually rose to her feet and bowed to Lord Long Yang. Sir Long Yang Jun, why are you looking for Hidden Sword? Not only did the little girl salute, she was also unexpectedly respectful. Hidden Sword, I have said it many times. You and I have transcended. We are equal. Long Yangjun stretched out his hand and helped Hidden Sword up. However, this girl seemed to have her own stubbornness. She said indifferently, Sir, you are of the same generation as my O family's second-generation ancestor. Hidden Sword is a junior. Yu Danxiang vaguely heard some things. It seemed that the transcendents here came from different spacetimes. However, some came from the same spacetime, for example, Hidden Sword and this Long Yangjun? Lord Longyang probably couldn't change Hidden Sword's temperament either. He pondered for a moment and said, Hidden Sword, you're the guardian of the Lost Garden's Eternal Night Palace. You're in charge of all the portals that lead to the Lost Garden. You're also our first stop. Have you seen any new faces recently? Please be specific. Long Yangjun thought for a moment and said, They shouldn't be new people. They might have entered by mistake. Or they might have chosen to come here because their strength has reached a certain level. They should have come from a relatively recent space-time. Well, it should be around the year 2000 AD. I know Taibai Jinxing. When we were talking, he said that Taibai Jinxing was older than him by 1,000 years. Hidden Sword was silent for a moment and said, I don't remember. Recently, other than the new people, there was only one person who accidentally entered the Eternal Night Palace. Moreover, it was because he picked up Master Dong's token and accidentally came here. Long Yangjun casually looked at Yu Danxiang, who was behind him. Picked up Master Dong's token? What a lucky guy. Hidden Sword, since you haven't met him, then forget it. Maybe he is still wandering in the cracks and hasn't found the Lost Garden. Sir, can you tell Hidden Sword the characteristics of this person? If I meet him, I will inform you immediately. Long Yangjun waved his hand and said, No need. If fate wills it, we will meet again. Now, let's finish this operation first. The Ark's helmsman is missing. For most of us, it is a troublesome matter. Hidden Sword nodded and then sat down to meditate again. At the same time, Yu Danxiang felt a strange aura. It slowly surged around them. It was a strange feeling. It was as if his body suddenly became heavier, but suddenly became lighter. Yu Danxiang only felt a flash of white light in front of him. After the flash, what he saw was no longer the strange darkness of the crack, but light. Try to follow me, or Hidden Sword. This time, the time of interference is limited. We will not stay for more than half an hour. Yu Danxiang felt Musashi patted him on the back. He subconsciously wondered, why? The longer we stay, the more disadvantageous it is for us. After the time of interference, we will become weaker. Musashi then said and slowly pulled out a katana from his waist. Get ready. Hearing this, Fishball Chong shuddered. He raised his head and looked up. Within the light, one could faintly see layers of clouds stacked on top of each other. The light shone on every corner of this place, and at this moment countless angels were descending from the light. Exiles of the world, how dare you invade my lord's heavenly kingdom? Bathed in the glittering golden light and holding a scepter, an angel with 6 wings, bare feet, and a halo appeared in front of everyone. The radiance of the holy light made people forget the evil thoughts in their hearts. He appeared so quickly. Archangel Gabriel. On the opposite side of the supreme level was a golden-haired young man wearing silver-white armor and a red cloak. Yu Danxiang didn't know how the supreme level was differentiated between the strong and the weak, but at this moment it could be described as an echelon. For example, Dong Zhuo, who was like a mountain of meat, Long Yangjun, who was chatting with Hidden Sword lowly, and Hidden Sword himself were standing in the first echelon. As for Daji, Master Musashi, and the bearded man named Oda, they were standing behind the first echelon. Were they in the second echelon? However, they didn't know the strength of the golden-haired young man who was talking to the 6-winged angel. They only knew that the supreme-level people around them called him Charlie, the Lionheart King. Exiles of the world, please leave my lord's heavenly kingdom immediately. Facing the group of menacing supreme-level people, the Archangel Gabriel, who was by the left and right hand of God, had a calm expression on his face. He wasn't scared or angry. Gabriel, we're here to pick up Noah. Hand him over, and we'll leave immediately without wasting time. At this moment, the Lionheart King waved his hand, and his red cloak fluttered in the wind. Noah is a sinner in heavenly kingdom, and he needs to be judged here, Gabriel said calmly. The Lionheart King laughed and said, Then, there's nothing to talk about. If you don't hand him over, We'll snatch him. I don't want to waste time with you. I've been wanting to fight you for a long time. At this moment, Gabriel waved his hand, and a beam of holy light shot out from the scepter in his hand. The Lionheart King waved his arm and chopped down fiercely. The powerful force collided with the holy light, and the resulting shock waves created a fierce wind. However, the supreme level people in the rear didn't move at all. It was as if a cool breeze blew by. Gabriel, do you think that you and the puppet angels behind you can stop us by yourself? The Lionheart King sneered. Boom! Just as the Lionheart King finished speaking, horrifying flames suddenly appeared behind the supreme level people. Dozens of fire pillars soared into the sky, instantly breaking apart some of the supreme level people's formation. At the same time, a purple-white light soared into the sky from the flames. It was a strange angel with purple flames circulating all over its body and wings on its back. God's flame, Uriel? The flame angel named Uriel had a handsome face. At this moment it slowly waved its hand, and the purple fire pillars that soared into the sky began to distort, breaking apart the supreme level people's formation again. Gabriel, I've told you many times that you don't need to waste your breath on these exiled sinners. Since they dared to invade the heavenly kingdom, they should accept the punishment of the holy flames. The heavenly kingdom, at least the heavenly kingdom that people were familiar with, had many powerful and famous angels. The God's flame and the God's flame were only a part of the heavenly kingdom. In the heavenly kingdom above the clouds, there were more powerful angels and even holy sons. The Lionheart King snorted coldly and shouted, "Everyone, charge in together! In this mission, our priority is to find Noah." Along with the Lionheart King's order, more than a dozen figures in the first echelon instantly charged into the heavenly kingdom above the clouds. Gabriel snorted coldly and waved the scepter in his hand again. However, he couldn't stop the dozen figures at the same time. He only left 3 figures behind while the others charged into the large number of angels. Like a treasure sword that could cut through rotten wood, the supreme level people who charged into the heavenly kingdom each left behind a horrifying bloody path. A large number of low-level angels were killed in the blink of an eye. After the low-level angels died, they turned into light and returned to the heavenly kingdom. Under the holy light of the heavenly kingdom, a large number of angels appeared once again. Under the heavenly kingdom, the huge sky instantly turned into a huge battlefield. At this moment, the Lionheart King had already charged toward Gabriel. Damn! Angels are much harder to fight than origin demons. Dodging left and right, Yudanqiang was chased and beaten up by 2 Earth-level angels. The heavenly kingdom above the clouds was out of his reach. He couldn't handle the 2 low-level angels in front of him. How is it? Are you satisfied with this new map? Musashi had been by Yudanqiang's side the whole time. When Yudanqiang couldn't hold on any longer, he simply waved the katana in his hand. Basically, he killed an angel with 1 slash effortlessly. However, Musashi didn't participate in the battle. He just followed Yudanqiang from behind. Yudanqiang felt that this Master Musashi definitely had the ability to be in the first echelon, but he was still lazy. Master Musashi, why can't we kill all these angels? These low-level angels are created as battle puppets. There are very few who can be called angels in the heavenly kingdom. Musashi rubbed his chin and said, "We can't kill all the low-level angels. As long as the master of the heavenly kingdom is still there, they can be created continuously. Don't think that every single soldier on our side is very strong, but in a protracted battle, we will be at a disadvantage in the end. This time, Throne Archimedes needs to intervene personally, so it's unlikely that he will intervene. This is equivalent to saying that we have to deal with the master of the heavenly kingdom by ourselves. Can we win?" Yudanqiang swallowed his saliva. Musashi shrugged and said, "What are you thinking about? The master of the heavenly kingdom is better than several throne, then how can we fight? Yudanqiang couldn't help but show a bitter face. That's why we are prepared. Musashi narrowed his eyes at this time. It's almost time, right? After all, we have caught so many of those things. In an instant, Yudanqiang thought of the endless creatures in the dimensional cracks. Void original devil. The strange and terrifying voice of a strange beast suddenly rang out in the heavenly kingdom. There was a sweet and fragrant land everywhere. Noah, who was left here, looked up. My companion is here to pick me up, Father. Noah didn't turn around. Behind him, he was still sitting on the ground with a calm expression. Noah lowered his eyebrows and said, Can you let me go? Father, if you don't take action personally, it seems that it's difficult to resist my companions. They are a little rude. But he slowly opened his eyes and said in a low voice, The heavenly kingdom has its own guardian. As long as your thrones don't take action, I won't either. Noah's expression couldn't help but become more serious. Chapter 1165. The kingdom of heaven was huge, like a space without boundaries. In a place higher than the clouds, there was a place that constantly emitted holy light. It was the sanctuary of the Lord, the place where the Lord lived. There were also different places in the clouds. The city of the saints was also called the Holy City. It was the place where angels were born, educated, and lived. When an angel died, it would bathe in holy light and be reborn in the holy pool in the city of the saints. The power of the holy pool came from the light of the Lord's sanctuary. As long as the light of the sanctuary did not stop, the holy pool would never stop. There was also the kingdom of petitioners. It was the land of beautiful souls in the human world, the place of the Lord's purest faith. The land under the clouds was also a part of the kingdom of heaven. It was called the hometown of the saints. It had the most beautiful scenery in the world. The land, mountains, rivers, grasslands. It was a place that was not polluted. At this time, the land under the clouds welcomed the flames of war. The invaders called transcendents were scattering impure flames on the hometown of the saints. In the city of the saints, angels were revived from the holy pool one after another. They flew out of the clouds without stopping to resist the invaders. For some newborn angels, it was difficult to adapt to this kind of hasty battle. Perhaps, in their understanding, it was difficult to imagine that there would be enemies invading the kingdom of heaven. Metatron, come here. You're standing at the opening and closing of the holy city's defense system. The moment the stern voice sounded, the newborn angel Metatron, who had yet to complete his education, was slightly startled. Then, he quickly spread his wings and left where he was standing. Your Excellency Archangel Carmi. Metatron came to the side of an archangel teacher in the teaching institute with a trace of fear on his face. This was a very uncoordinated expression among the many low-level angels. The archangel named Carmi frowned. The situation was a little tense. Now, in the city, 4 transcendents had broken through the defense line and directly invaded the holy city. They were wantonly destroying everything. Their goal seemed to be the holy pool used for the reincarnation of angels. Where did these invaders come from? Metatron looked at the spreading battle in the holy city in confusion. The invaders were very powerful. No matter how many low-level angels charged at them, they were instantly turned into ashes. Only the archangels could barely stand under the attacks of the invaders. Transcendents, a group of thugs who have voluntarily exiled themselves in the gaps between dimensions. Archangel Kami did not say much. Anyone who invades my Lord's heavenly kingdom is an enemy, but they won't attack for too long. Why? Metatron asked subconsciously. Invading kingdom of heaven requires an even stronger power. Interfering with my Lord's radiance outside of Kingdom of Heaven is a huge consumption of energy every moment. Kingdom of Heaven is a country recognized by all the world's consciousness. Ever since they exiled themselves, they are no longer recognized by the world's consciousness. Without interference, their power will rapidly decline. Instead, He rushed to the place where Metatron had been standing and personally controlled a part of the defense system in the Holy City. Metatron's expression changed drastically. He did not pay much attention to Metatron. A huge halo began to spread from the place where Archangel Kami was. The halo of holy light. Metatron opened his eyes. This was the power of blessing that could strengthen the abilities of all angels. At the same time, everywhere in the Holy City, light cannons containing powerful holy light quickly shot at the enemies invading the Holy City. There are only a few of us. It seems that we won't be able to take down this place in a short time. One of the 4 transcendents who had invaded the Holy City was topless. He had dark skin and blonde hair. After easily blocking this wave of light cannons, he said rather helplessly, "We just lack some time. Albert, I'll leave these defensive attacks to you. I'll go destroy the city's defense center first. I still prefer to continue my research in my research lab instead of abusing violence here." Upon hearing that, the white-haired Albert sighed. "It's a pity that as a guide, I have no choice but to bring my descendant along in such a battle, so that he can gain the necessary knowledge. Please forgive me, God's apostles. I hope that your energy can calm down." Down below, Luo Bo frowned when he heard Albert's mutterings. However, at this moment, the overwhelming holy light energy and the attacks of the angels all gathered in front of Albert. What he was facing was a terrifying ocean of energy. Facing such a terrifying attack, Luo Bo's expression couldn't help but change. Albert didn't make any extra movements. He just stretched out his hand and wrote something in the air with his finger. It seemed to be a strange formula. The formula was not long. At the very least, he had completed it before the sea of energy engulfed him. Albert waved his hand and flicked, shattering the formula he had written. In an instant, the attacks that filled the city had already vanished without a trace. This is the strength of a Nirvana-level expert? Luo Bo's pupils contracted slightly. According to Albert, he had already joined the ranks of the Transcendents, but he was not a true Transcendent. At the very least, before he completed Albert's series of experiments, he could not reach the level of a true Transcendent. At most, he could only be considered a quasi-superscendent. While Luo Bo was still in shock, a holy light longsword stabbed at him from the side with great speed and precision. This was a sure-hit attack. The attacker was an archangel of the Holy City's defense. However, what surprised this archangel was that the holy light longsword had already stabbed the enemy, but the enemy in front of him instantly disintegrated into countless particles, and then reassembled. The attack was ineffective. "You're a phantom?" The archangel who attacked was shocked. At this moment, the particles gathered again, and Luo Bo appeared in front of this archangel. He suddenly waved his arm and tore through the archangel's chest. It's said to be an abnormal quantization, although I don't know what it is exactly. The archangel's body was instantly torn apart, turned into a golden light, and flew back to the holy pool in the depths of the holy city. In the end, it only saw the blue flames in the enemy's eyes. Luo Bo frowned and looked at the escaping golden light helplessly. These angels could be killed, but he couldn't kill all of them. He looked at his palm and clenched it gently. This was the strange ability he had obtained in the powerful quantum collider in Albert's first experiment. His scientific knowledge wasn't enough for him to understand the principle behind it. He only had a general idea that this was an ability to transfer attacks to other dimensions. According to Albert, if he could evolve it, there seemed to be a possibility of interfering with the time axis. But that would be very far away. Luo Bo wasn't too keen on a power that was too far away, but continuous battles would certainly improve his current ability. In this holy city, these powerful angels were very good sparring partners. At this moment, the sky above the clouds suddenly began to ripple. Distorted ripples began to spread in the sky. Within those ripples, one could see ugly, terrifying, and horrifying bodies struggling to break free from these rippling vortexes. Roars of terror filled the entire heavenly kingdom. Albert looked up and frowned, muttering, "Has it begun? The Feast of the Void Original Demon, what's that?" Faced with the large number of terrifying beings that appeared above the clouds, each of them emitting an extremely evil aura, Metatron had an indescribable feeling. This group of invaders actually brought these dangerous things from between the cracks. At this moment, Archangel Cami, who was controlling part of the defense system, had a drastic change in expression because he saw clearly that these terrifying Void Original Demons' current target was the kingdom of the petitioners, the place where the believers of the Lord lived. "Oh no, these original demons want to devour the petitioners!" Archangel Cami cried out in horror, but at this moment, he couldn't do anything else. Faced with the invasion of 4 transcendents, there were no angels in the city of the saints who could truly resist them. If Lord Lucifer was still here, you wouldn't be so presumptuous. But the Star of Dawn had completely fallen and become the king of hell. "Lord Cami!" Suddenly, a scream came from Metatron. Archangel Cami was subconsciously startled, but at this moment, his body suddenly shattered, turning into a golden light that shot back into the depths of the holy city. The first central point destroyed. The one who appeared here was a muscular man with thick black skin, blonde hair, and a naked upper body. At this moment, he suddenly punched the ground. A terrifying shockwave spread out from the center of the man's body. In an instant, the surrounding buildings were flattened. Hundreds of low-level angels were instantly turned into golden light by the shockwave, and the surrounding area was flattened. At this moment, the man flicked his wrist, but turned his head to the side. "Oh, you actually blocked it. Little angel, you seem to be a little special." Lord Cami, in the ruins, Metatron pushed away a huge rock that was pressing down on him, clutching his shoulder as he staggered to his feet. He looked at the place where Archangel Cami and the other angels had been destroyed. Not long ago, they were still learning about the knowledge of alternate dimensions together, listening to Archangel Cami narrate the deeds of the Lord. "Beowulf, don't stop." A voice came at this moment. The naked man with dark blonde hair raised his head and responded, "You go to the left. After I finish off this little thing, I'll go to the other central point." The Supreme Being who spoke didn't stay for long. Instead, he broke through the defense of a large number of low-level angels at an extremely fast speed and headed to a corner of the holy city. The man with dark blonde hair, Beowulf, sized up Metatron at this moment and walked over slowly. "Oh, little angel, I see anger and hatred in your eyes. Do you puppets actually have feelings? And these feelings are impure to the heavens." Metatron gritted his teeth and endured the pain of his injured arm. He raised his uninjured arm and condensed a long sword of holy light. "Ah dash!" With a furious roar, Metatron rushed toward Beowulf in front of him. But as a newborn angel, the long sword of holy light it wielded was broken when it slashed Beowulf's body. Metatron's expression changed drastically, and his chest took a solid punch from Beowulf. Metatron's body was violently slammed into the ground. The originally shattered streets of the city instantly cracked and sank. Metatron instantly lost consciousness and lay motionless on the ground. Beowulf frowned at this moment. His punch still didn't shatter the body of this low-level angel. "What's wrong with this little angel?" Beowulf muttered. He raised his fist again and punched down without thinking. The moment his fist landed, a weak holy light suddenly lit up on Metatron's body. The weak holy light turned into a small cocoon of light. It looked very fragile, but it was this weak cocoon of light that blocked Beowulf's fist. "This is..." Suddenly, a fierce holy power burst out from Metatron's body. That weak moment reached an extreme in an instant and turned into a huge pillar of light that shot into the sky. In the pillar of light, Metatron's body slowly rose. It still didn't seem to be awake. Its head was lowered, but pairs of wings began to bloom slowly on its back. 610, 1836. 36 white wings on its back. At this moment, Metatron slowly raised its head. Its face was full of indifference. Metatron looked at Beowulf and slowly stretched out its finger. God said, "Let there be light." It sounded like a sigh. With a finger of light, the weak holy light directly penetrated Beowulf's chest. At this moment, Beowulf didn't even have time to react. After being penetrated by the weak holy light, his body began to shatter in an instant. Beowulf's pupils constricted as he watched his body collapse in disbelief. Death. Unlike angels who returned to the holy pool after death, they could be reborn again. As transcendents, they were like rootless duckweed. If they died, they would just die. The huge pillar of light that appeared from the holy city in the clouds immediately alarmed all the transcending level beings, as well as the powerful blazing angels under him. Gabriel, who was entangled by the Lionheart monarch, suddenly stopped and looked at the brilliance released by the holy city. The Lionheart king also stopped and looked at the appearance of the pillar of light in shock and bewilderment. Beowulf actually, not only did the pillar of light cause alarm, but it also brought with it a huge and terrifying violent holy power, a terrifying power that surpassed most transcendence. This holy light is... Gabriel's expression froze. At the same time, the voice of Uriel, the flame of God, who was dealing with several transcendents, rang in Gabriel's ears. "It's him. That monster. Has he really recovered? Holy light Metatron. I don't know, but..." Gabriel's expression was solemn as he looked at the kingdom of petitioners in the clouds. "If the void original demon invades there, the consequences will be very serious. I hope Raphael can resist it. Michael is on an expedition to a new world, so he can only rely on us to protect his father's glory." With that, Gabriel waved the scepter in his hand. Facing the difficult opponent, the Lionheart king, a look of disgust appeared on the left and right of God's face. "Foolish Lionheart king, you will pay the price for what you have done. History has always been written by the victors." The Lionheart king laughed wildly and suddenly clenched his hands. "Infinite sword of victory!" Like a gust of wind, continuous and terrifying slashes were unleashed from the Lionheart king's hands. Gabriel's face showed no fear as he met the attack head-on. Clouds, the kingdom of petitioners. On the tower, a gentle-looking seraph was slowly playing the harmonica in his hand. The sound of the harmonica was like holy music, calming the souls of every petitioner here. It calmed them down and made their fear disappear. The gentle sound of the harmonica drifted in the wind. He slowly put down the harmonica in his hand and looked up. Looking at the void original demons that were constantly struggling out of the interference cracks, a look of worry appeared on his face. These void original demons weren't the only ones. There were several other transcendents before the void original demons. At the same time, a strong beam of light shot out from the saint's city. He glanced at it, and the worry in his eyes deepened. At the same time, he sighed and looked up into the distance again. "The kingdom of petitioners isn't a place for you to cause trouble. Leave. Don't disturb the rest of these souls," he said slowly. "Angel of life. Raphael, it's better to meet you in person than to hear about you." A hearty laugh rang out at the same time. It came from a charming man wearing a red robe. He praised, "Your beauty is truly something I have never seen before in my life." The red-robed man was Long Yangjun. Apart from him, there were many other transcendents gathered here. Dong Zhuo, Solomon, Hidden Sword, Oda, and 3 other transcendents who were hiding in the shadows. Long Yangjun, are you interested in her again?" Dong Zhuo, who was as fat as a mountain of meat, narrowed his eyes and laughed. He was still holding an arm in his hand, the arm of an angel. "If that's the case, I can only chase you away." Raphael spread his wings slightly and flew away from the tall tower. "No rush. Let's play with these little guys first. We worked very hard to catch these void original demons. They're a gift to your kingdom of heaven." Dongzhuo licked his lips. The transcendents stood far away from the kingdom of petitioners. Above them, A large number of void original demons madly swooped down. It wasn't just the kingdom of petitioners. Ever since these void original demons appeared from the interference cracks, they had invaded every corner of the kingdom of heaven. The saints' hometown, the saints' city, the petitioners' kingdom. Even the holy abode of the Lord of the clouds. Raphael frowned and waved his arm. In the kingdom of petitioners, a large number of angels rushed into the sky and welcomed the invaders from the dimensional cracks. The truly dangerous battle had only just begun. Only 10 minutes had passed since the transcending level experts' invasion. At this moment, a large number of angels fell one after another from the void original demons' attacks. Above the clouds, the void original demons were wreaking havoc. One by one, the void original demons were slashed apart by the angels and fell down. A void original demon's body had already been torn apart and fell into the kingdom of petitioners. However, it wasn't completely dead. The void original demon, which only had half of its body left, was now following its instincts. There was a large amount of delicious food here. The petitioners who possessed pure and devout faith. The moment it dragged half of its body and opened its large, ferocious mouth, preparing to bite the nearest petitioner, its head seemed to be nailed to the ground by something. It couldn't move in an instant. These are all things used to pay my master. You want to eat them without even asking. It's going to be very difficult for me. Bastards. At this moment, a black mist slowly condensed on the void original demon's body. It condensed into a human form. An exquisite face, bewitching eyes that stirred one's mind, as if they could steal one's soul at any time. An almost perfect body. A female, wearing a snake crown on her head and holding a scepter, she slowly waved the scepter in her hand. The void original demons that had fallen into the kingdom of petitioners didn't even have time to get up at this moment. Their bodies quickly withered and finally turned into dust. I feel like my strength has weakened a little. The woman glanced casually, then looked thoughtfully at the firmament above the clouds. Suddenly, she muttered, "Master seems to have changed?" She glanced at the void original demons that were bearing down on the border and smiled faintly. She slowly tapped the ground with her scepter. A spiritual light slowly swam under her feet like a golden snake. The woman reached out and stroked the snake's head. Her slightly narrowed eyes sized up the transcendence and the void original demon army in the distance. Then where should we start? Let's clean up these bastards first. After all, it would be a pity if such good petitioners were contaminated. She slowly waved the scepter in her hand and pointed at the endless void original demon army. She whispered, "This is the Egyptian sunset, the serpent of time that shows the end. As the last pharaoh, I command you." But the chanting voice suddenly stopped at this moment. The golden snake that emitted divine light also raised its head at this moment and stuck out its red tongue. She looked into the distance. At this moment, in the middle of the battlefield between the void original demons and the angel army, a strange wave that didn't belong to interference or the kingdom of heaven was slowly born. Space began to distort and distort. Within the vortex, a huge body was being pulled out bit by bit. When it completely broke free from the vortex, what appeared in front of her, Raphael, Long Yongjun, and the other transcendents was a huge body that was at least 10 meters tall. It was a woman's figure with wings of light spread out behind her back. However, it didn't look like a living creature, but rather a huge doll created by some kind of machine. Mutants detected. Large number. Request to destroy. Request to destroy. Request to destroy. Request to not respond. Entering autonomous mode. Annihilation mode activated. Annihilation system installed. Installation complete. Start. LA. The huge, strange doll opened its hands slightly and let out a chanting sound. Chapter 1166. On the battlefield between the angels and the primordial void demons, the giant machine that suddenly appeared launched a terrifying attack on the primordial void demons the moment it appeared. Its appearance not only puzzled Raphael, who was guarding the country of petitioners, but it also surprised Long Yangjun and the other transcendents who were waiting for an opportunity to strike. But at least Raphael didn't reveal her doubts because the giant machine was attacking the primordial void demons. At this moment, the 10-meter-tall giant machine with considerable agility and astonishing speed didn't stop. It was like a weapon born for battle, charging directly into the primordial void demon's camp. Is this thing a new type of soldier from Heavenly State? In the distance, Lord Long Yang looked thoughtfully at the gigantic machine puppet that was sweeping through the crowd of primordial demons in the void. He frowned. I don't think I've heard of such a thing appearing in the Heavenly Kingdom. Dongjue narrowed his eyes and watched the whole process without saying a word. Hidden Sword suddenly waved his hand, and a sword shadow rushed out from beside him, crashing into the beam of light shot out by the giant machine. Then, the sword shadow quickly turned back. The long sword was unscathed and emitted a strange luster. Several transcendents looked at Hidden Sword at the same time. Long Yangjun said softly, "How is it?" Hidden Sword said indifferently, "The power of the red light released by this strange machine is not bad. But logically speaking, it shouldn't show such lethality when dealing with the primordial void demons." Everyone was a creature that had evolved to a very high degree, and they quickly reacted. You mean, this strange machine's attack, or the power of this red light, has a natural restraining effect on the primordial void demons? Hidden Sword nodded. Only with restraining properties can it achieve such lethality. Long Yangjun said doubtfully, "We've been waiting in the cracks for a long time. Even among us, even the sovereigns, there has never been a power that can restrain the primordial void demons. If this machine belongs to Heavenly State, it means that it has already developed a way to restrain the primordial void demons?" This was perhaps a question that none of the present transcendents were able to answer, but the appearance of this strange machine made things seem simple and confusing. This puppet is a natural counter to the primordial void demon, as if it was specially created to deal with the primordial void demon. Dongjue said in a low voice, "Even the progenitor level can't resist the attack of this puppet. I guess the primordial void demon we release this time won't be enough to deal with this puppet, Dongjue?" Long Yangjun frowned. Dongjue patted his stomach and said, "The sovereign's interference is limited in the first place. We attacked the petitioner's country just to slow down the pace of the Heavenly Kingdom. Since we can't do that, let's do something else." As he spoke, Dongjue charged into the sky. Shockingly, his destination was the Supreme Lord's Sanctuary. After that, Oda, who was next to Dongjue, followed suit without hesitation. "How dare you!" Seeing Dongjue charging toward the Lord's Sanctuary, Raphael couldn't help but look angry. At this moment, the Angel of Life ignored the sudden changes on the battlefield and chased after Dongjue directly. But at this moment, several sword shadows combined into a sword wheel and blocked Raphael's way. Almost at the same time, Long Yangjun also drew his sword. The Dahongpo flashed, and a piece of Raphael's robe was cut off. Long Yangjun smiled. "Don't worry, the interference won't last long. Why don't you and I have a good talk? Hidden Sword, don't interfere." "Yes." Hidden Sword nodded. Her sword wheel dispersed and turned into 5 long swords, which slowly rotated around her. "Exiles of the world, do you really think you can easily invade our Lord's sanctuary?" Raphael sighed. "Could it be that you've already forgotten the day of judgment of my Lord? It's a horrifying judgment day in many spacetimes. How can I not have heard of it?" Lord Long Yang smiled faintly. "But I think that the one above the clouds would not easily conduct a trial in his own kingdom, right? You will pay for what you have done today." Raphael sighed slowly. The white robe on its body disappeared, and was replaced by a silver-white armor. "Are you going to get serious?" Long Yangjun put away the smile on his face and slowly waved the longsword in his hand. A dazzling red lotus slowly bloomed under him. This is a sword technique that one of my best friends practiced. I improved it and gave it a new name. It is called Red Lotus Elegy. At this moment, red lotuses bloomed all over the sky. Unlike Dongjue and Oda, the other three supreme transcendents didn't follow them. Unlike Long Yangjun, they didn't choose Raphael as their opponent. Instead, they took advantage of the chaos to sneak into the petitioner's kingdom. It's been a long time since I saw Long Yangjun fight. It seems that he really met the person he likes. This damn glass. Enough. We have limited time to interfere. Dongjue thinks that we can't do anything in the petitioner's kingdom, but I don't think so. The petitioners here are pure and pious. It's a pity for them to stay here. We can't say anything, but we didn't say that we can't plunder them. I agree. We still have about 15 minutes, right? While Long Yangjun and Hidden Sword delay Raphael, we should plunder as many petitioners as we can. Rahu Throne will like these petitioners. As they spoke, the three supreme transcendents suddenly felt a trace of uneasiness. In the country of the petitioners, where they were, a gray fog had formed from underground at some point in time. In an instant, the gray mist covered the area they were in. The three Nirvana-level experts weren't ordinary people. At this time, they quickly reacted, but before they could react, an object moved within the dusky fog. It was a huge golden snake. The three supreme transcendents were entangled by this huge golden snake. It's just a snake monster. The three supreme transcendents tried to summon their strength, trying to break free from the snake's entanglement. However, even with their great strength, they couldn't break free from the golden snake's entanglement. It wasn't that they didn't have enough strength to break free, but at this moment, their strength was rapidly weakening. Not good. It's poison. This gray mist is poisonous. We've transcended the main world. There's no poison in this world that can work on us. However, traces of black mist crawled up their faces. In the blink of an eye, their cheeks began to rot. At the same time, the golden snake began to coil its body, exerting pressure on them. This isn't the ability of an angel. Who is it? They looked around in horror. What they saw was a graceful figure in the gray mist gradually becoming clear. The woman with the scepter in her hand, the snake crown on her head, and a bewitching gaze slowly walked over. Beside her, several tiny golden snakes coiled around her and actually brought her body up into the air. You guys are too idle, aren't you? The woman said indifferently. Just stay in the crack and no one will care about what you do. However, this place is currently under my watch. As for these petitioners, you don't have a share. You? Who are you? This woman's body emitted an extremely demonic aura at all times. The woman fell backward. The golden snakes coiled around her in a flash, transforming into a chair made of snakes that caught her body. The woman covered her mouth and smiled. Forget it if you don't know. Don't think that you're omnipotent just because you came out of the other space-time. You guys know nothing about power. Leaving the other space-time is only the beginning. Painful howls began to come out of the three transcending level experts' mouths. At this moment, their bodies were rotting even more severely. The peeling flesh made them look like evil spirits. In the end, the three transcending level experts' bodies turned into puddles of pus and blood. Let me tell you one last time. This isn't some poison, but a plague. Amidst the soft laughter, the gray mist gradually dissipated. In the end, only a few puddles of blood were left on the streets of the kingdom of petitioners. At this time, the woman quietly climbed up a certain tall tower in the kingdom of petitioners. This was the place where the Angel of Life used to play her harmonica. However, she didn't look at the fight between Raphael and Long Yangjun. Instead, she looked doubtfully at the huge machine that was slaughtering the original void demons. This thing shouldn't belong to God. Otherwise, there's no need to wake me up. The woman became more and more puzzled. What is it? I've never seen it before. It seems to only target these original void demons. The woman quickly sat down. To her, no matter how many transcending level experts invaded the kingdom of heaven, as long as they didn't come to the kingdom of petitioners, she didn't have much to do. However, if anyone dared to invade the kingdom of petitioners, she would leave as many as they came. That was all. The woman let out a pleasant moaning sound. Then, she chuckled softly. The new master. I wonder if he's a romantic. As she spoke, the woman lightly covered her mouth with her hand and yawned slightly. There's less than a year left. It's time to change shifts, right? It's been a long time since I wandered around in another space-time. Before Dong Zhuo and Oda arrived at the supreme sanctum of cloud heaven, a group of transcending level experts had arrived even earlier. That's right, it was a group of transcending level experts. There were more than 20 of them. They were the main force of this rescue mission for Noah. Each of them could be considered a senior transcending level expert. At the very least, they were people who had broken through the limits of the main world 1,000 years ago in the normal spacetime. The exterior of the sanctum has been breached. They're working very hard. Dong Zhuo landed on the sanctum and looked around. There was no one in sight. However, there were traces of battle inside the sanctum. The sanctum was divided into 3 days. It was even more likely that Noah was imprisoned in Eden on the 3rd day. At this time, the transcending level experts had already breached the defenses of the 1st and 2nd day. They were currently breaching the defenses of the 3rd day. At this time, Oda covered her ears with her hands. Her expression slightly froze, and she said in a low voice, "We have to move quickly. The surveillance system has sent back information that Michael is leading his troops back from the world outside number 99. They won't make it in time." Dong Zhuo waved his hand and said indifferently, "Whether we succeed or not, they won't be able to make it in time." As he spoke, Dong Zhuo didn't walk on the path to the 3rd day. Instead, he turned somewhere in the area of the 1st day. "Aren't we going to help on the 3rd day?" Dong Zhuo smiled slyly. "We have other missions." The only God they believed in was the omniscient and omnipotent Holy God of the Trinity. On the 3rd day, more than 20 Nirvana-level experts were blocked by a white-robed man with a compassionate expression. A man who was able to block 20 Nirvana-level experts by himself had a special position in Heavenly Kingdom. The Holy Son Jesus. He was the same as the Holy Father. The Kingdom of Heaven is really stubborn. Facing the Holy Son who was blocking the 3rd day, the transcending level experts calculated the remaining time and looked for a way to break through the Holy Son's blockade. "Everyone, please leave. Don't cause any more damage." The Holy Son sighed. The Ark originally belonged to the Kingdom of Heaven. Noah took it without permission and is already a sinner. The Kingdom of Heaven didn't choose to fight with you to take back the Arkansas. They only chose to capture the sinner. Forget it, only Noah can control the Arkansas. Without Noah, the Ark is nothing more than a broken boat that will capsize. Besides, even if you're the Holy Son, you can't block more than 20 of us at the same time, right? The Holy Son said slowly, "The interference won't last too long. Maybe after that, I can leave some of you in the Kingdom of Heaven to listen to the Holy Father's teachings." The Holy Son is right. We don't have much time. However, our mission is only to break through the 1st day, the 2nd day, and the 3rd day. Hearing this, the Holy Son Jesus seemed to understand something and frowned slightly. At this moment, more than 20 transcending level experts erupted with a powerful force at the same time. The power fluctuations even began to shake the entire Kingdom of Heaven. Not good. The Holy Son Jesus's expression changed slightly. Is it a double interference? Without thinking, the Holy Son stepped forward and released a majestic holy power from his hands. The impact of the holy power did not have any effect. Or, before it was about to have an effect, this majestic holy power was blocked. A huge palm. At this moment, above the 20 transcending level experts, A huge crack appeared in the sky above the third day of the sanctum. The palm stretched out from this crack. The third day began to shake violently. After the palm blocked the holy sun's holy light, it began to directly tear apart the cracks on both sides. A huge arm stretched out from the crack at this moment. This pair of arms suddenly tore apart the crack completely, and at this moment a huge body squeezed out from this narrow crack with force. At this moment, the shaking of the third day became more and more intense. The holy sun frowned because he felt a strong evil aura from this huge figure. Compared to the holiness of the kingdom of heaven, this evil aura was so clear and obvious. The demonic god, Ahriman. The holy sun's expression was solemn. I see. This is what you're relying on. Archimedes' interference, and you're doing double interference to let Ahriman come? Me too. Almost at the same time, above the third day, there was a thunderous explosion. Another crack appeared at the same time, and a huge figure rushed out from the second crack. This second figure, compared to the first figure compared to the body of the demonic god, that the holy sun spoke of, was even bigger. At this moment, the holy sun's expression was solemn again. The worry in his eyes was even more intense. He had already recognized the first demonic god that appeared, and he had also recognized the second huge figure that appeared. Not only Ahriman, but also Cronus. So, you've indeed come prepared. Including Archimedes, you've actually sent out 3 sovereigns. The demonic god Ahriman, the source of evil in the ancient Persian gods Cronus, the second king of the gods in ancient Greek mythology. Facing these 2 ancient gods, the holy sun could not remain calm in the end. Just as his heart was in turmoil, a trace of weakness quietly appeared. In the third day, the towering giant Cronus suddenly punched out. The 100-meter-tall king of the gods, his fist was like a falling meteorite. With a punch, the third day was shattered. Extremely destructive energy, like a storm, swept through everything in the third day in an instant. In Eden, he, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, opened his eyes at this moment. The pure land of Eden in front of him had already been shattered, and the surroundings were raging flames. The earth was burning, as if it had turned into a purgatory. At this moment, 2 gigantic figures descended upon the crimson land and looked down upon them. A ray of golden light landed beside him. It was the holy sun who was fending off the transcendence outside the third day. The holy sun arrived with a worried look on his face. "Father, I didn't expect the demonic god and Cronus to come personally." He shook his head and said softly, "Do your best, until the end, I will also." The holy sun nodded and then glanced at Noah. Noah was a free body in Eden, but he could not leave Eden unless there was a stronger force that forcibly pulled him out of Eden. Obviously, in order to achieve this step, the Transcendence used 3 sovereigns at once. At this moment, the holy sun slowly floated up into the air, facing the demonic god and Cronus alone. "Holy Sun, do you think you can stop us by yourself? Even if you and the Holy Father are of the same level, but most of your powers are gone, right?" The demonic god's voice was filled with arrogance and arrogance. The Holy Sun ignored him, and only slowly opened his hand. Majestic holy power flowed slowly, calming the raging flames in Eden, and the holy power, as if there was no limit, was still increasing. Countless rays of golden light, at this moment, from the kingdom of the petitioners in the clouds, madly rushed towards the holy sun and merged into his body, causing the holy light to increase dramatically again. Such an increase in holy power even reached the level of resisting the demonic god and Cronus force field at the same time. This seemed to be unexpected by the demonic god and Cronus. What are Dong Zhuo and the rest doing? Haven't the kingdom of the petitioners been destroyed yet? The demonic god's voice was filled with anger. Then, with a roar, his huge body suddenly swooped down. The battle between the holy sun and the demonic god instantly broke out. In the sky, Cronus' gaze was fixed on the holy sun, as if he was looking for a chance to strike. At the same time, He was also deconstructing the confinement force of Eden on Noah, so that he could fish Noah out at any time. On the third day, the battle between the Holy Son and the demonic god was earth-shattering. It was far from the true battle between the angels and the transcendents under the clouds. The raging flames on the ground had subsided, but the storm swept over again. Swaying in the wind and rain, beneath the Holy Son, a small golden snake slowly crawled over and finally came in front of the Holy Son. The small golden snake raised its body and spat out its red tongue, but it made a pleasant sound. God, I have to remind you that if the kingdom of the petitioners continues to consume at this rate, after a long time, there will not be enough for the next delivery. Or do you intend to use your children to make up the numbers? After all, this is not the first time. Thank you for your reminder, Lady Cleopatra. The Holy Son sighed. I will not give up my children again. Ha, so you intend to do it yourself? The Holy Son did not answer. Instead, he stood up, looked at the sky, and said in a low voice, Come back. Father? Even so, the Holy Son still felt an irresistible force that brought him away from the battlefield and back to Eden. At this time, the light that rose from the kingdom of the petitioners also gathered around the Holy Son. The tremors of the third day, on the contrary, calmed down. Seeing this, Cronus suddenly said, Ahriman, you are going to do it for real. As he said this, the towering giant Cronus suddenly waved his hand and grabbed Noah, who was on Eden. This force is... Father. Raphael was stunned, but at this moment, a red light flashed by the Holy Son's side. On the Holy Son's silver-white armor, there was a burning red sword mark. The seductive man who was wearing a red shirt and holding a sword in front of him was more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Looks like we don't have much time left. Brother Raphael, don't be distracted. Long Yongjun chuckled, and the red sword lotus bloomed again. Raphael furrowed her brows, looking towards the giant puppet of unknown origin that was blocking the path of the Yuan demon army in the void. This puppet had actually stopped at this moment. It had indeed stopped. Facing the endless stream of void prime demons that were emerging from the interference cracks, its eyes were sweeping across these cracks. Analysis of spacetime interference frequency complete. Suggestion to first perform spacetime correction. Then perform mutant annihilation. Judgment. Suggestion approved. Commencing correction. At this moment the armor on its chest slowly opened up, revealing a sparkling jewel. This is, the tremors that originated from the third day reached the destruction of the first day. At this moment, following Dongzhuo's footsteps, Oda had also arrived at a strange place. It was a 7-story tower. Ha, the intelligence was right. This thing was indeed hidden in the first day. Dongzhuo sized up the tower in front of him, and in an instant, he crashed into it. His mountainous body easily broke through the outer wall of the tower. There was no resistance at all. Dongzhuo and Oda were able to easily infiltrate the tower, but there was almost nothing here other than a single high platform. There seemed to be something on the platform that was faintly emitting a strange luster. Revelation. I won't hold back. Dongzhuo narrowed his eyes and suddenly leaped up, grabbing at the object on the platform. At this moment, an old voice slowly sounded. Chapter 1167. A massive amount of holy power swept down from the clouds, or perhaps it was called divine power. It turned into light and illuminated the entire hometown of the saint. The light chased away the darkness like the rising sun, and the darkness shrank to the end of the horizon. Wherever the light spread, the void original demons were crushed to pieces. It seemed to only target these dimensional creatures that had invaded the kingdom of heaven. In the city of the saint, Albert returned to Luo Bo's side. At this moment, all the angels in the holy city stopped what they were doing and knelt on the ground. They put their palms together and sang the name of the Lord. What a powerful divine territory! Under such light, the truth of science is suppressed to the limit. I am still too insignificant in the face of scientific truth. Luobo couldn't measure the limit of the power of this huge holy light. He could only listen to Albert's sentiments. One of the transcendents had already died, just a few minutes ago. This was the only information that Lober had, because it happened right under his nose. Beowulf was the name of the powerful transcendent who died. The angel who killed Beowulf was now floating in the sky above the holy city. This strange angel was far more terrifying than Albert. The sense of danger was an innate instinct. Luobo instantly determined that even if it was this strange angel in the sky above the holy city, he and Albert might not be able to deal with it, let alone the person who released such a terrifying holy light in the sky above the holy city. Oh no! At this moment, Albert suddenly frowned. Someone is repairing the interference of the throne. How can it be like this? What a fast repair speed! Before Luobo could react, the strange 36-winged angel above the holy city suddenly moved. It followed the huge holy light and rushed to the highest point in the sky. The third day, Eden. Under the illumination of the ultimate holy light, the evil god Ahriman felt as if he was being burned. The evil god in the form of a huge demon was now surrounded by a layer of dark light. Anger, hatred, all the evil in the world seemed to be the source of Ahriman's power. At this moment, the evil god was ferocious and laughed wildly. "Is this all you've got? Is this all you've got, God?" In the blink of an eye, a black light erupted, faintly contending with the enormous holy light. In the holy light, he had a look of pity on his face, but he closed his eyes and sighed. He spread his hands slightly, and his entire body turned into a golden, flowing light at this moment. The light on his body seeped into the holy light, and the situation that had been holding on suddenly changed drastically. The power of the demonic god was once again suppressed to the point where it was almost insignificant. Damn it! So this is the difference between faith. The evil god Ahriman gritted his sharp teeth. His pupils were completely black, and the black light around his body flickered. However, its power had become extremely unstable at this moment. It was like a reflection in the water that was rippling, and it was difficult to maintain its integrity. "What's going on? Is it time to interfere?" Much faster than expected. It was Kronos' voice. "Let's go." Without any hesitation, Kronos' gigantic palm had already sucked Noah into it. At this moment, there seemed to be a strange force that was crazily pulling at the bodies of these two sovereigns. "Stay." He opened his eyes again. His voice wasn't loud, but it was the voice of the Lord. It was the supreme voice of the kingdom of heaven, and it had an irresistible force. The bodies of the demonic god Ahriman and Kronos suddenly slowed down. At this moment, in the sky of the third heaven, another huge crack appeared. From the crack, thousands of silver light balls rushed out. Countless silver light balls stretched and changed shape in the sky, turning into rhombus-shaped mirrors. At the same time, another voice came from the third crack. "The interference will disappear immediately. Take Noah and leave." It was the voice of the sovereign Archimedes. Countless silver mirrors blocked most of the holy light at this moment. Not only that, these large number of mirrors formed an almost perfect arc in the sky of the third heaven, absorbing and emitting the holy light's brilliance. Taking advantage of this brief moment, the demonic god Ahriman suddenly roared. He opened his terrifying mouth and spat out a huge ray of black light. However, half of Kronos' body had already returned to the crack, and he watched as Noah was about to be pulled out of Eden. The son of Saint angrily attacked, but something was faster than him. It was a figure that broke through the first heaven, second heaven, and directly descended to the third heaven from the holy city below. 36 wings. Instantly, the son of Saint seemed to realize something and muttered, "It's him, Metatron?" This figure that had broken through to the third day was indeed the angel born in the holy city, Metatron. At this moment, its body was burning with a different type of holy light that was completely different from the Lord's. It was a dim, pale radiance of holy light. Metatron crashed into Kronos, who was about to leave the crack. Kronos punched out. At this moment, Archimedes joined forces with the demonic god Ahriman. Their powers collided like celestial bodies. The collision between Metatron and Kronos was like the expansion of a comet. Madness, love, strangeness, all sorts of powerful forces that transcended the mortal world caused unimaginable destruction. In the end, the clouds appeared, and the Lord's holy abode began to crumble and fall from the heavens. The power that exceeded the limits of the kingdom of heaven finally broke it open. Above the sky, a large number of space cracks appeared. A pulling force came from the space cracks, crazily absorbing everything in the kingdom of heaven. Buildings, earth, wind, water, the angels. At this moment, Metatron's body was sent flying by Kronos' fist. It fell into a space crack that suddenly split open and disappeared. Kronos' entire arm was completely destroyed in this collision and peeled off from his body. After letting out a furious roar, his body completely returned to the interference crack. Then, the interference crack instantly disappeared. "I will come again." The demonic god's unwilling voice echoed in the shattered sky. Faced with such a situation, more than 20 transcendents who had joined forces to perform the double interference technique left one after another. Using the interference crack created when Archimedes attacked, they instantly rushed out, the sanctuary actually. Looking at the Lord's residence falling from the clouds, the angel of life Raphael's anger reached its peak. At this moment, Long Yangjuan's figure retreated again and again. He stood proudly in the void with his sword in hand. "I see. Brother Raphael, it seems that anger can also increase the power of angels like you." Long Yangjuan's expression turned serious. "Unfortunately, you seem to be trying your best to suppress this anger. This battle ends here. When we meet again in the future, I hope that Brother Raphael can fight with me in your truest form. I'll be very grateful." "Where are you going?" Raphael shouted angrily. Long Yangjun slashed down with his sword. The huge red lotus exploded, causing the Angel of Life's figure to stop. "Hidden sword, open the door." Long Yangjun pointed with his sword. The 5 swords beside Hidden Sword suddenly turned into 9 swords, all 9 swords slashed out together. Dozens of sword lights were released. A sword light flew behind Long Yangjun and directly cut open a crack. Long Yangjun chuckled lightly. He pulled off the sword tassel in his hand and threw it to Raphael. "We'll meet again in the future. This is for you." Naturally, this sword tassel did not possess much offensive power. However, as he watched Lord Long Yang disappear into the fissure, Raphael subconsciously reached out to catch it and frowned. The sword light entered the Saint City and appeared in front of Albert. "Lobo, this time, you should have some understanding of this level of war." "Well, I have a very good research topic." Albert didn't wait for the other transcendents in the Saint City. He directly grabbed Lobo's arm and walked into the crack. "Well, clean up and go back. I want to implement the new idea on you." "This old guy. Damn it, he didn't wait for me." "Albert, don't even think about getting materials from me in the future." In the depths of the Saint City, a light flashed repeatedly. When it passed by the place where Beowulf died, it paused for a moment and bowed. Then, before the crack closed, it flashed into the crack. "Gabriel, let's fight next time. Lionheart King. You Danxiang, hold on to me tightly. We're going to run." A purple flame penetrated the back of a transcendent who remembered walking into the crack in the future. Seeing the crack close, this transcendent who remembered leaving in the future instantly exploded with a powerful force. But at this moment, his head was instantly severed. In front of him, Uriel, the god of flame, looked cold. On the first day, in the 7-story tower, a loud bang suddenly sounded. At the beginning of the 7-story tower, Dongjua smashed a big hole and entered. Now, Dongjua smashed another big hole, but this time, he flew out of the tower with Oda. A horrifying bloody hole appeared on Oda's shoulder. As for Dongjua, He seemed to have lost a lot of flesh, and his cheeks were slightly sunken. I didn't expect this guy to be guarding the Book of Revelation. I don't have enough information. Retreat. Without any hesitation, Dongzhuo grabbed Oda's shoulder and flew backward again. A sword energy rushed over, tore open the crack, and sucked him and Oda in. At this moment, a man with messy hair and a thick beard walked out of the crack in the 7-story tower. It seemed that he hadn't taken care of himself for countless years. He was barefoot and wore a shabby linen shirt and pants. Only half of his face and nose could be seen. He looked up and fell silent for a moment before he slowly returned to the tower. He only had one mission, and that was to guard the things in the tower forever. The sanctum in the clouds was at its lowest point, and it was about to crash into the nation of the petitioners. At this moment, the woman who was sitting on the throne of snakes waved the scepter in her hand. A fluctuation of power that originated from ancient times spread in the air, bypassing the perception of many angels and quietly spreading in the sky, repairing the broken gaps in space caused by the battle in the clouds. My mission is to guard the kingdom of heaven. Repairing is part of my job, and I can't ask for more. I'm at a disadvantage. Should I ask for more compensation? The woman muttered. Then, she narrowed her eyes and suddenly patted the armrest of the snake throne. Instantly, a spiritual light shot out. In the hometown of the saint, it was the last sword energy that tore open a crack here. He should be the last transcender who was going to leave. This time, 3 sovereigns joined forces, but they still couldn't break through the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven is indeed powerful. He looked at the crack in front of him, and then looked back at the clouds, shaking his head. However, just as he was about to step into the crack, a huge snake mouth suddenly opened in front of him and swallowed him. The kingdom of heaven, the land bathed in holy light, had the sweetest water and the most beautiful land, but now it was destroyed on a large scale. The fallen holy place high in the clouds made all the angels cry out in grief. We are guilty. Facing the fall of the Lord's holy place, several seraphs lowered their heads and knelt down in grief. The mournful cries of the petitioners rang softly in the kingdom of heaven. Let there be light. The Lord's voice suddenly fell, and the sky of the kingdom of heaven that was filled with darkness regained its radiance. Let there be grass and vegetables that bear seeds on the ground, and trees that bear fruits. The cracks in the ground began to repair, and green grass grew again. The trees also grew new buds, and the mountains and rivers returned to their original appearance bit by bit. Even the fallen holy place seemed to be flowing backward at this moment, slowly reorganizing and returning to its original state. Let there be many living things in the water. Let there be birds flying on the ground and in the sky. In the river, the sound of swimming fish appeared. White pigeons flew out of the forest and into the sky. A rainbow rose from the waterfall in his hometown and turned into a rainbow bridge, connecting to the holy city in the cloud. Praise the Lord! The angels no longer cried out in grief. Regardless of their ranks, they all sang hymns. The miracle instantly washed away the destruction, anger, and all kinds of things that had happened here. On the 3rd day, it returned to its original appearance. In Eden it was still a clean place. He sat cross-legged on the ground of Eden again. The woman wearing the snake crown was currently hugging a golden snake with both hands. She walked over leisurely, looking extremely flirtatious. The golden snake in the woman's embrace blinded its eyes. Its body was slightly swollen and squirming, as if it was digesting something. Lady Cleopatra, he said slowly, thank you for repairing the space of the kingdom of heaven. Who asked me to be unlucky last time and draw the shortest lot? The woman smiled and suddenly said, Oh, I'm sorry, my pet will go back later. It won't stay in the Garden of Eden for long. It's okay, I'm not afraid of snakes. He shook his head and asked, That strange puppet, is it the work of Lady Cleopatra? The woman shook her head and said, I don't know the origin of this thing. However, it's possible that this is a backup plan arranged by my master. Of course, I really don't know. Is that so? He nodded and moved his mind. Everything in the kingdom of heaven was instantly grasped by his perception. Soon, he found the location of this huge puppet. He saw that this huge machine of unknown origin was currently stopped in a forest under the cloud. There was no movement at all. It was only half kneeling with its head lowered, as if it was waiting for something. A bird landed on its shoulder and lightly pecked its body. Then, I won't disturb you. I hope that this is the first and last time during my tenure. Of course, this will also be the last time I talk to you, right? The woman said softly at this time. With a tinkling laughter, she turned into a cloud of black fog and disappeared into the land of Eden with her golden snake. Father, after that, the son of Saint came to him. He stood up, looked at the son of Saint in front of him, and said softly, "It's been hard on you, John." "No, it's my honor to protect my father. The son of Saint." John knelt down devoutly at this time. "I'm the disciple of the son of Saint, and also your disciple. Protecting you is the only thing I can do." "Lift up thy head, my child," said his voice softly. John slowly raised his head and saw him waving his hand. In Eden, a stone statue slowly rose from the soil. The stone statue looked like Noah. "Father, this..." He stared at the stone statue for a long time, then sighed and said, "They didn't take Noah away. In the end, I left him behind. This is his punishment. Petrification won't last forever. When he wants to be free, let him be free." "Yes, Father." John nodded. His body gradually emitted a faint light. His voice sounded again. "After Michael returns this time, stop all exploration operations. Also, Metatron has indeed been resurrected. This time, it was lost in the turbulence of time and space. I don't know where it will be. Find it and bring it back. Its resurrection is not complete." At this time, John opened his mouth and looked at his body that was gradually fading. He opened his mouth but did not dare to speak, for fear of interrupting his every word. "Those in the tower of the petitioner's kingdom. When that person comes, take them out and hand them over to him. The time is almost up. The kingdom of heaven needs to continue to exist." "Yes." John lowered his head, gritted his teeth, closed his eyes, and made a sorrowful voice. "Finally, I will strengthen the protection of the periphery of the kingdom of heaven. After this, they shouldn't come again in a short period of time." As he spoke, his body slowly floated up. "The Holy Father, the Holy Spirit, the Son of Saint. The Trinity is exploring the final path and is not here. The power that I left here back then has been exhausted. John, you have a part of the hypostasis that the Son of Saint has raised for you. Now I will raise your hypostasis by half. Although it is still not enough to reach the level of a true Son of Saint, it is enough to deal with the few sovereigns that have appeared this time." He stretched out his hand and pointed, and the light from his finger fell into John's body. "From now on, the kingdom of heaven is in your hands. Don't let anyone know that I am no longer here." His voice also rose slowly. "Father." His body turned into light and scattered into the sky. In the crevice of the dimensional void, the billowing aura of evil spread wildly. That was the roar of the demonic god. The anger of the sovereigns and the enormous power that was released made it impossible for the weaker transcendents to get close. Between the sovereigns, the three sovereigns for this operation had gathered. The anger of the demonic god had not subsided. As for Cronus, his body was constantly inhaling and exhaling lava. His broken arm was now growing bit by bit, but it was extremely slow. It might take a long time or something else to repair it. This operation has failed. Not only that, we have also lost many transcendents. The silent Cronus stroked his broken arm at this time. There was no anger in his voice. "We have still underestimated the combat power of the kingdom of heaven. The number of transcendents we are anxious about is limited." That was Archimedes' voice. "This is not all we have. But But what? The demonic god asked directly. Archimedes said, "This time, a strange giant machine appeared in the kingdom of heaven. It seems to have the ability to restrain the void original demon. At least from the energy of its attack, that is the case. In the end, it was this machine that made a move and ended my interference prematurely. This is something I did not expect. Otherwise, I would not have acted so hastily." "A machine has the ability to end your interference?" Cronus seemed to be in disbelief and was shocked. "Does this mean that the power of this machine can reach our level?" Archimedes shook his head and said, "It should not be. This is a technology that I am completely unfamiliar with." The three sovereigns fell silent at the same time. The result of this battle with the kingdom of heaven was obviously not ideal, and it seemed that something terrible had happened. After a while, "We did not manage to save Noah in the end," the demonic god said angrily. "Without Noah, the ark cannot sail. In fact, this time, we did gain something," Cronus suddenly said. "Although we could not save Noah, in the end, Noah gave me a message." "What kind of message?" Archimedes' voice sounded. Cronus said slowly, "He asked us to look for Wolfgang. He said that Wolfgang knows where the person who replaced him is. He asked us to bestow the gem sword." Archimedes was silent for a moment. A new dimension observer. There was not only one place between the sovereigns, it was just the area where all the sovereigns were. Like the many transcendents, each of them had their own paradise. Between the sovereigns there were also courtyards for the sovereigns. "My lord." In the courtyard of the sovereigns, a huge mountain of flesh welcomed them. Dongzhuo. He walked forward quickly and looked at the depths of the courtyard, at the figures sitting on the ancient lotus platform. He lowered his head and said, "We did not manage to get the Book of Revelation. Our information was wrong. The Book of Revelation has a very strong guardian." The figure on the lotus platform did not open his eyes. He only said calmly, "I understand. Dongzhuo, I have something else that I need you to do." "My lord, please tell me." The figure on the lotus platform slowly opened his eyes. "I have a sudden inspiration. In the next space-time, there seems to be a fated person for me. Go and welcome him." "A fated person for you?" Dongzhuo was slightly stunned. He raised his head and looked at the lotus platform high above. At this moment, there was another figure sitting cross-legged below the lotus platform. It was the newcomer that Dongzhuo had personally received. He was also the fated person for the Lord on the lotus platform, Eric. "Go." The figure on the lotus platform waved his hand. Yes, Dongzhuo nodded. He did not ask any more questions and left the courtyard of the sovereigns. Finally, Erex, who was sitting cross-legged under the lotus platform, opened his eyes. His eyes were a little special, hazy and unreal, but they gradually became real. "Fate is really a wonderful thing," the figure on the lotus platform said softly. "I thought you would be the most suitable successor for me. But now, fate suddenly changed. It seems that there is one more suitable person. He seems to come with great merits and great ambitions." Erex looked at the lotus platform, thinking silently. After a while, he said slowly, "I will win." The club quietly returned to its first address after the new boss. It was the city where Luocio grew up and had been living. This was the second day after they returned, which was also the second day after the national news about the Mount Tai incident was released. In the study room, "Cleopatra?" Hearing the name mentioned by Miss Maid, Boss Luo thought for a moment. Miss Maid said softly, "It's the content of the account book. It seems to be something that happened when you were in the Penglai treasure house and Mount Tai." "Show it to me." Luocio nodded and immediately said, "No, you should read it to me." Okay. Chapter 1168. At the same time, at least during the period when Boss Luo was active in Mount Tai, the things that happened in another time and space slowly unfolded through Miss Maid's oral narration. After a while, Yu Yi closed the account book in her hand. "Master, this is the whole story." After closing the account book, Miss Maid changed the cold tea. The so-called huge machine doll that appeared in the Kingdom of Heaven should be the combat weapon that disappeared from the Penglai treasure house. Luocio suddenly said. Miss Maid nodded. It should be. At that time, Taiyinzi accidentally touched some of its functions, so it was transmitted away. But Taiyinzi didn't mention this matter. Maybe he thought Master didn't know. Luocio smiled. This weapon has the ability to transfer. I originally planned to see where it would transfer to and whether it would bring me something. But it actually went to the Kingdom of Heaven, which is a bit surprising. It may be a random transfer, Miss Maid pondered, or it may have been interfered with during the process of transfer. The behavior of the detached person interfering with the Kingdom of Heaven is originally an abnormal means of space interference. If it happened at the same time, it may not be impossible. But to confirm whether it is correct, I'm afraid I need to go to the Kingdom of Heaven to check it in person. Of course, it was more direct to buy information from the altar. In short, as long as you buy, basically there was nothing you couldn't do. No need. Luocio shook his head. No matter what the reason is, we just need to know the result this time. The Kingdom of Heaven wasn't really destroyed, and the content of the contract was not touched. As for what the detached person wants to do with the Kingdom of Heaven, I'm not interested for the time being. I'm not tired of staying here. But Luocio suddenly looked up at Miss Maid in front of him. Looking at her dark blue eyes, he whispered, If you want to go, you can go and have a look. Miss Maid said softly, I just want to stay with my master. I won't go anywhere. Luocio smiled. It won't be long before school starts. I'm not familiar with that area. See if you can find a good place to move the shop. Yu Yi has already searched several places. Does Master want to take a look now? I'll leave it to you. Luocio stood up. Pack up the things here. I'll go check on Luoya. Luoya woke up on the same day after her return. After waking up, Luoya was no different from before she fainted. She was still very afraid of strangers, but she listened to Luocio very much. When Luoya was in a coma, Yu Yi had done a detailed examination of Luoya's body with Luocio's permission. The conclusion was that Luoya was not completely composed of 10,000 elements. Luoya's body was special. Part of her body was composed of 10,000 elements, but there was also a part of ordinary biological tissue. At the same time, there was also a part of foreign origin. In addition, there was less than 1% of the composition that Yu Yi could not distinguish. But no matter how special Luoya's body structure was, one thing was certain, Luoya was manufactured. When he pushed open the door, the slender girl was sitting in front of the dressing table. Her expression was empty as she looked into the mirror. She didn't move at all. In fact, when she didn't even blink, she looked like an exquisite doll. Yu Yi was also a puppet, an alchemy puppet. It was just that there was a layer of superb illusion on the surface of her body, so it could not be seen. Luoya had many parts and also human parts, but she looked more like a real puppet. Don't you like this room? As long as she saw Luocio, her empty eyes would recover a trace of a young girl's aura. Luoya slowly shook her head. Luocio walked behind Luoya, pressed his hands gently on the girl's shoulders, and looked at himself and Luoya in the mirror. Everything in the mirror was like a painting that had appeared in the Penglai treasure vault for many years. Luocio took out a comb from the box on the dressing table, lifted Luoya's hair, and gently combed it. The girl seemed to like this intimate behavior, and closed her eyes in enjoyment. Luoya's mind was basically blank now. Luocio could not obtain more information from talking to her. This was probably a disguised punishment after he forced the altar to retreat. In other words, not only had she lost her power, but she had also lost all her memories. Only then could the altar confirm that she was in a safe state and allow her to stay. The purple hair became smoother and smoother in the gap of the comb, giving a feeling of reluctance to let go. Luocio found that combing this purple hair was actually a kind of enjoyment. Time slowed down a little. After a while Luochu stopped. If you want, you can try to walk out of this room. Apart from the 3 floors below, you can move around in other places. You can't go out for the time being, but after some time, I will try to take you out. The girl just nodded. Luochu smiled, squatted down, looked at the girl's side profile, and asked softly, "Now, is there anything you want to do?" The girl opened her eyes, picked up the comb that Luochu put down, and handed it to him. "Okay." Luochu nodded. Even though her hair didn't need to be taken care of anymore, he still combed the girl's hair for her again. Time slowed down even more. The elevator door slowly opened on the floor of the magazine office. At this time, a head sneakily poked out, wearing a headscarf and sunglasses, quietly looking at the situation in the magazine office. "Sister Ren, good morning." The moment the voice was full of vitality, the headscarf woman felt her shoulder being patted, and then she was startled. "Are you trying to scare me to death? Wicked girl." Rico felt that she was quite pitiful. She just said hello. However, it seemed to be a good enjoyment to see Rin Xiling's nervous face every day. Yukiko also came with her. Since she came back, she naturally had to face the things that people in society had to face, going to work. It was impossible to go to work, and it would never be possible for her to go to work. For sub-editor Ren, who had a mortgage and car loan, and would officially enter the age of 30 after the new year, it was tantamount to a lunatic's talk. "What are you doing here stealthily?" Rico asked curiously. Yukiko also looked at her curiously. Ren Xiling bowed, holding her handbag, and rushed directly to her office without saying anything, but the moment the loser queen of the office successfully broke into the door of the magazine office, she was caught red-handed. "Ren Xiling." Sub-editor Ren's body gradually stiffened at this time. She made a gulping sound, stiffly turned around, and said with a laugh, "Ahahaha. Good morning to you too, Chief Editor. Ahahaha, today's weather is good. I suddenly remembered that I have an interview to do. I'll go out first." "Damn it, come back. Come to my room and explain to me." The chief editor snorted, walking back to her office with her hands behind her back. So the loser queen of the office could only sigh, taking off her headscarf and sunglasses. She pouted and lowered her head dejectedly, following her boss into the office. Before entering the door, Her Majesty suddenly thought of a good way to get away, so she quietly said to the assistant sitting outside the chief editor's office, "Go, call the chief editor's wife, tell her that the chief editor wants to sleep with you and force you to lie on the desk after work." The assistant blinked, although she understood the intention of the loser queen, but she couldn't tell the wife that her husband slept with her. Besides, why did she even think about the position? Seeing the assistant's embarrassed look, sub-editor Ren fiercely made a pinching gesture. After this, the loser queen might get a new nickname, such as Nanny Ren. I'm going to print the information, so many. She hurriedly left. Ren Xiling opened her eyes wide and glanced at everyone in the office. She saw that everyone seemed to have entered quickly and suddenly disappeared. So, Nanny Ren could only sigh that people's hearts were not what they used to be and walked in as if she had accepted her fate. "Ren Xiling, explain to me what you've been doing for the past 10 days. And what's with this expense report? Why don't you sleep with me? Go away. I love my wife very much." After lamenting that people's hearts were not what they used to be, Nanny Ren couldn't help but sigh that her youth was gone. "Rico, don't we need to help Sister Ren?" Outside the chief editor's office, Rico was looking at the gap between the curtains, eating snacks and smiling. She fanned her hands when she heard Rico's words. Rico shook her head and returned to her seat. As an intern, in fact, she didn't really have anything worth doing, she just had to do various chores in the office. At this time, the phone on her seat suddenly rang. It was a call from the lobby. "My classmate." Rico suddenly frowned. Where did her classmate come from? But to Rico's surprise, the person who claimed to be her classmate turned out to be missing, the person who sent her from South America. Miss Song? Why are you here? The chief editor's wife naturally didn't bring her sisters to the magazine. Even no one pushed the door open and said that they had made coffee. When it was almost lunchtime, Nanny Wren was finally freed from the hell of being reprimanded by her superior. She dragged her body back to her office and slacked until it was time to get off work. Sister Wren, it's time to get off work. Why don't you go back? Rico came over and greeted her. I also want to. I have to hand in at least a headline tomorrow, but I can't write a word now. Rico, why don't you? I'll go first. I suddenly remembered that I haven't washed yesterday's clothes. Rico instantly closed the door of the office. Damn, I haven't told you. Who taught this girl? So witty? Renziling blinked and continued to lie on the table like a dead fish. After a while, there was a knock on the door. The person who pushed the door open was Rico. Why aren't you leaving? Sister Wren, is there anything I can help you with? Rico asked with a smile. Renziling shook her head. If you're not in a hurry to leave, chat with me. We haven't spoken much today. Rico said, then, why don't we go for a drink? I know of a new Japanese restaurant. It's pretty good. Chingzhou. Renziling, who was holding a pencil with her lips, rolled her eyes. It sounds pretty good. Is it expensive? I'll treat you, Sister Wren. Rico hurriedly said, I received my salary. After coming here, Sister Wren, you've taken care of me too much. Let me treat you, okay? But, do you still have work to do? I'll stand you up. Renziling pressed her hands on the table and stood up. It's impossible for me to work overtime. I'll never work overtime. Damn, it feels so good. Auntie Wren, whose face was rosy, walked out of the Japanese restaurant in high spirit. Beside her was Rico, whose face was also dyed red due to the effects of alcohol. Okay, I'm full. Renziling burped. I'll send you back. I won't drive after drinking. Let's call for an online taxi. Okay, why don't we walk a few steps to help with digestion? Rico suggested. Let's blow away the smell of alcohol. Sister Wren, didn't you say that your son is back? Renziling slapped her forehead. You reminded me. Right, if I go back like this, I'll definitely be scolded by that damn brat. It seems pretty lively over there. Let's go over and take a look. On the street, many pedestrians were gathered together. They seemed to be watching something. Renziling was someone who liked crowds. Without thinking, she walked over. Before he entered, he heard the sound of music coming from the crowd. Abracadabra. At this time, in the crowd, a girl with a very good figure was twisting her body to the music of the mobile phone on the ground. Women seemed to have a natural attraction that attracted people's eyes. People would not resist beautiful things. Her long black hair fluttered in the rhythm, her soft body swayed, and the exotic dance gave people a different feeling of impact. Oh, this kind of woman is rare. Auntie Wren nodded at this time. There were not many girls with this kind of condition in society. With her sharp eyes, she could even see that the girl who was dancing had not undergone plastic surgery, which was even rarer. What made Renziling feel the most was that the girl was earning money in this way. On the ground, next to the mobile phone, there was a small box with a lot of tips on it. Unknowingly, the music stopped and there was enthusiastic applause. Some people began to put the tips in the box. Renziling couldn't help but take out her wallet at this time. But at this time, a man suddenly rushed out of the crowd, picked up the box and the mobile phone on the ground in a flash, and then rushed into the crowd. My mobile phone! The dancing girl screamed at this time. Robbery! Yakiko, call the police. Subeditor Wren, who had always had a strong sense of justice, took off her shoes without thinking and chased after him. The robber was now trying his best to hide in the complicated city. However, he seemed not to be familiar with the terrain here, or maybe Subeditor Wren was too familiar with this city. The man was gradually caught up. Auntie! Get out of my way! F*CKU Auntie? In the alley, Renziling suddenly jumped up and stepped on the wall. She kicked out her leg and directly kicked at the man. The man looked back and saw Renzeiling's flying kick. He was suddenly shocked, and then his head was swept fiercely. He suddenly lost his direction and fell to the ground. The box containing the money and the girl's mobile phone fell to the ground. The man quickly climbed up from the ground, only to hear the shouting from outside the alley. He immediately gritted his teeth. B*TCH, you wait for me. With this, the man sprinkled a handful of cement powder, turned around and ran into the alley. Renzeiling didn't continue to chase. She didn't know whether the man had companions or not. Most importantly, she couldn't let herself be easily injured, so she had to stop here. Sister Ren, are you okay? Where is that man? The one who chased after her was Yukiko, and the girl with long black hair who was dancing on the street to earn money. The girl's face was a little pale, and she seemed to be frightened. It's okay, he ran away. Renzeiling waved her hand. It's just a little thief. I'll find someone to scrape him out. How dare he threaten me? By the way, are you okay? Are you scared? The girl with long black hair rushed over anxiously at this time. The girl nervously picked up the mobile phone that fell on the ground, and then turned on the lock button with fear. After seeing that the phone could be turned on normally, she was relieved. Then she said to Renzeiling and Yukiko gratefully, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Looking at the girl who was about to cry and looked pitiful, Renzeiling waved her hand and asked curiously, "Is your mobile phone very important? When you were robbed just now, the first thing you shouted was your mobile phone." The girl nodded at this time, looking a little haggard and sad, and her voice was soft and weak. "There are many memories of me and my boyfriend in it." "Oh." Renzeiling nodded. She roughly understood what was going on. "You should be fine now, right? But it's so late, why don't you ask your boyfriend to pick you up?" At this time, the girl opened her mouth, wanting to say something, but finally shook her head gently. "Why, your boyfriend is not here?" The girl sighed. "Actually, I'm looking for him too. I just know that he should be in this city, but I've been here for a long time, but I haven't found him." Suddenly, one day, he disappeared without a trace. Renzeiling was used to seeing the world, so it was easy for her to understand something from the girl's words. Chapter 1169. Renzeiling took the lead and found a place to drink milk tea. At home, she basically didn't eat any junk food. Sweet and hot food basically didn't exist in any place in the house where she could hide things. After 30, Nanny Ren, who had completely let go of herself, didn't care much about her figure. She happily ordered a cup of caramel-flavored milk tea, a large cup. Yukiko paid the bill. Renzeiling's professional ethics of gossip was reflected. She didn't sympathize with the dancing girl, but was angry at her. "What? You two fell in love with each other after knowing each other for a few days? My God, you believe in love at first sight in a foreign country? Girl, you are too young. Haven't you thought that he was just playing around? He is not that kind of person." Renzeiling shook her head. From a woman's point of view, she felt that she needed to remind this child. However, this child was really infatuated. In order to find a scumbag, she came to this place from thousands of miles away. She had no relatives and used up all her money. Not only did she not find the scumbag, but she could only sleep on the street and earn some living on the street with her little talent. Even so, she didn't want to leave. Looking at the girl's worried and sorrowful appearance, Renzeiling couldn't help but sigh secretly. At this moment, Yukiko quietly waved her hand and asked Renzeiling to come over. Renzeiling frowned and said something to the girl before walking to Yukiko. "Sister Ren, what are you going to do with this person?" "I'm still thinking." Renzeiling pondered. "How about we help her?" Yukiko said, "How can we help? This kind of thing is actually very normal, right? When she sees the reality, she will naturally go back. We can't help her much. After all, it's a matter of love." Renzeiling said, "That's the reason. But this girl doesn't even have a place to live now. Can you bear to see her like this?" Yukiko hesitated. But what if this is a new type of scam? I heard that scams nowadays are very sophisticated. Renziling smiled. It's good that you're careful. But that depends on the person. Look at this woman, no matter where she goes, I dare to guarantee that there will be a man with a brain filled with lust who will pay the bill. With conditions like hers, what couldn't she earn money from? Besides, even if it was a scam, they wouldn't choose to lie to us, right? What's there to lie about? After my monthly salary is deducted, I can't even afford a hot pot meal, okay? But I still think it's better to be careful. Renziling patted her shoulder and suddenly said, What if it's true? If it was true, then this child coming all the way to find his lover was a story that could be started. Let's assume that this man is not a scumbag, but has some unspeakable difficulties. It's another eye-catching story, especially for a little girl like you. Yukiko was stunned. Sister Ren, could it be that you can't write a script and everything you see is? Renziling gently grabbed Aki's shoulder. What did you say? I can't hear you clearly. Feeling the grip on her shoulder gradually tighten, Yukiko hurriedly shut her mouth. Renziling changed from grabbing to patting. Then, it's decided. Why don't I leave? The girl looked at this relatively simple but unusually clean house with some uneasiness. Looking at Renziling, who enthusiastically brought her home, she said, I really don't need to trouble you. I've already gotten back the money that I tipped just now. I can find a guest house. That kind of small place is even more unsafe. Renziling waved her hand and said, It's okay, there's no one in my house, just me and my son. Renziling didn't even raise her head as she sorted out her bag. Your son? The girl opened her mouth in surprise. My ex-husband's son. Renziling shrugged casually. Then your husband? The girl seemed to be even more surprised by the relationship between them. Renziling said indifferently, A few years ago, he died in an accident. I'm sorry. The girl whispered. Renziling shrugged and said, Child, if you want to live with me, even if it's only temporarily, there are rules. My family's rule is, don't talk about unhappy things. Then, where's your son? The girl looked at the time, it was almost 10 p.m. He's probably coming back soon. Renziling said casually, My son's personality is a bit strange. He doesn't like to talk much, but recently he got a girlfriend. Oh, speaking of which, this brat hasn't brought his girlfriend back for a long time. I don't know if their relationship is good. Ahaha, sorry, let's not talk about this. Why don't we talk about your situation instead? I don't know much about other things, but I know how to find people. Let's talk about your boyfriend? The girl nodded and began to fall silent, as if she was recalling something. His name is John. At this time, she looked at the mobile phone that was not turned on, her fingers gently stroking the screen of the mobile phone, and whispered, He is very gentle. Although he doesn't talk much, as long as he speaks, he always attracts people's attention unconsciously. Well, he is usually very quiet, as if he won't be angry about anything, and as if he can understand everything. We got to know each other in an accident. At that time, we both fell into a very cold place. A very cold place? Accident? Renziling curiously asked, Is it skiing? It's a cold storage. The girl smiled slightly and said, Although it sounds a bit incredible, there are some more complicated reasons in it. Well, it's not very strange. Renziling shrugged and said, There are so many strange things these days. Let's not talk about you. I was still there a few days ago. Nothing, you can continue. The girl nodded. Before that, I didn't even really know him, and I always felt a little resistant to him. However, when in the cold storage, it was very reassuring. I felt that as long as he was around, it was easy to have an accident. Renziling said, When people are in danger, it's easy to have feelings of dependence. When men and women encounter things of life and death together, it's easy to burst out feelings. Maybe it's not true love? Maybe. The girl sighed. In fact, I'm not very clear. Maybe you're right. Then what happened? Ren Xiling asked. You two got together? The girl gently raised her head, sometimes smiling, sometimes bitterly. We spent a very good time together. I thought that this kind of day would last forever. But I didn't expect that one day John suddenly disappeared. No matter how I looked for him, I couldn't find him. I almost exhausted all the methods, and finally found out that he came from this city. You never thought that this guy, this John, is just playing around? Ren Xiling finally couldn't help frowning. The girl lowered her head, but quietly stroked her abdomen, whispering, Anyway, I want him to know something. At least, I need an answer. Looking at the girl's action, Ren Xiling shouted in her heart. How could Nanny Ren, who had seen too much, not know what this girl's action meant? How many months has it been? More than 2 months, don't worry. Ren Xiling suddenly grabbed the girl's hand. As long as this scum, well, as long as this person is still in this city, I'll definitely find a way to find him for you. Thank you, Miss Ren. The girl gratefully said, I really don't know how to thank you. It's really great to meet you. Don't call me Miss Ren, call me by my name. Or you can call me sister, anyway, I'm a few years older than you. Ren Xiling smiled. Song Ying, right? Then I'll call you Xiaoying directly. Okay. The girl. Xiaoying nodded. The sound of the door opening. Oh, it should be my son who came back. Ren Xiling stood up at this time and suddenly thought of something, so she said, Don't be too strange later, my son is a bit old. Xiaoying nodded. Ren Xiling walked to the door in slippers. Boy, you are willing to come back? Where did you go to fool around? And when will you bring my future daughter-in-law here? I haven't seen her for a long time, you are worrying me to death. Luoqiu frowned, not because of Ren Xiling's words, but because he saw the girl behind Ren Xiling. Oh, let me introduce her to you. Ren Xiling turned around and said, This girl is called Song Ying. She encountered something bad, so I plan to let her stay here for a few days. Is that okay with you? After seeing Luoqiu, Xiao Ying's expression changed slightly. Then she covered her mouth with her small hand and tears began to flow down. She said in a hoarse voice, John, is it really you? Am I really not dreaming? Let's review the scene. Ren Xiling's mouth was slightly open at this moment. This kind of mouth was not fixed, but continuous. It felt like it was about to fall down. She pointed at Xiao Ying with her trembling hand, then turned her neck stiffly and pointed at Luoqiu with her trembling finger. Her eyes widened. He is very gentle, doesn't like to talk, very, very, very quiet. Oh my God! You are that scumbag? And you use a fake name? Luoqiu? ? At this time, Xiao Ying rushed over and threw herself at Luoqiu. It seemed that she used too much strength and carried him out of the door. Song Ying said in a low voice, Cooperate with me, it's about your father. Luoqiu frowned slightly. Ren Xiling anxiously paced back and forth in the living room, glancing at the balcony from time to time, but the sliding door of the balcony was locked, so she could not hear the conversation between Luoqiu and Song Ying. She could only see their movement. At this time, Luoqiu completely blocked Song Ying's view. But she could see that Song Ying was covering her mouth and her body was trembling slightly. She should be quite excited. John. Luoqiu. John. My son? Scumbag? Ren Xiling was burning with anxiety. Oh my God! Has this boy been smoking, drinking and tattooing all these years behind my back? So he has learned bad things? It won't happen, don't scare yourself, it won't happen. Ah! What should I do? The child in my belly? What should I do? What? Am I really going to be a grandmother? A grandmother? Well. Glancing at Ren Xiling in the living room, Luoqiu looked at Song Ying expressionlessly. Song Ying covered her mouth, but she was not crying. She was trying very hard to hold back her laughter. I'm sorry, I really can't help it. Song Ying giggled. It's really not easy for you to show such a dumbfounded look. This is something that even Song Haoran can't do, ha 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 ha. Luocha looked at Song Ing and said nothing. Strictly speaking, he was too careless. Luocha would not activate his ability as a boss when he returned home. As long as he returned to this home, he would completely treat himself as an ordinary person. Taking back his perception, taking back all his abilities, he simply pushed open the door of this house that still had alone for more than 20 years in his human form. Song Ing gradually stopped laughing and put down her hands. Looking at Luocha's expressionless face, she suddenly felt uncertain. A strong uneasiness made her stutter, and then her heart was in a mess. I didn't do it on purpose. I just wanted to make a joke. Who asked you to be so calm all the time? I just wanted to see your shocked look. I'm sorry, I'll explain it clearly later, don't worry. Song Ing gradually couldn't raise her head. Her fingers subconsciously grasped the corner of her clothes, as if she was really crying. She spoke incoherently. I don't know. Don't be angry, okay? It was too scary. She never knew that this man, who was like a spring breeze in front of her grandfather, all the Song family members, and even herself, would have such a face. She didn't even know that when she was afraid, she would be so weak, so submissive. After a long time, Luocha slowly opened his mouth and said, "As long as you don't have any bad intentions." When Song Ing raised her head to look at Luocha again, it seemed that the terrifying him was just an illusion. Once again, he was like a spring breeze in the field, so gentle that people couldn't help but feel comfortable. The feeling that made her feel as humble as a speck of dust also disappeared. But her heartbeat didn't calm down. "Clean up your appearance first, at least make yourself look more relaxed," Luocha said indifferently. "The woman in the living room is easy to imagine things." You're not angry?" Even though that feeling disappeared, Song Ing still felt that she was inexplicably weak. This was not like her usual strong style. Even she herself didn't understand. "I said, as long as you don't have any bad intentions, it's fine." At this time, Luocha looked at Song Ing and asked coldly, "Let's not talk about this first. What did you say just now? My father?" Song Ing seemed to have found a good opportunity to ease this atmosphere, so she quickly nodded. "Actually, this time I came here because my grandfather asked me to. We found that your father's death back then didn't seem to be an accident. It might have been caused by someone." Suddenly, the entire city was completely dark. The electricity in the city seemed to have been completely cut off at this moment. It wasn't just this city. If one looked at the satellite image, they would find that a large area of the country, outside of the country, and even in this hemisphere, had completely fallen into darkness in an instant, or it was shrouded in darkness. Chapter 1170. In an underground casino in the Kanto region of Japan, Suzuki, who was holding a metal baseball bat, was now sitting on the back of a big man. "You should have returned the money earlier. Why didn't you ask me to do it? B*****. I'm going to kill you." Yes. I'm sorry, brother. I promise I won't be late in the future. I promise. Get out." Natsuya Suzuki stood up and knocked the men several times with the metal baseball bat. The men immediately ran out of the room in fear. After that, Natsuya Suzuki put down the baseball bat and sat on the office desk, looking at a 10-year-old child sitting quietly in the room. "Kid, did you see clearly? If you meet someone who doesn't pay back the debt, you must beat them to death. If you beat them up and make them scared, they will be willing to pay back the money obediently. It's not that these people don't have the money to pay back, they just don't want to." "Why?" the child asked curiously. "They can do whatever they want when they eat it, but when they want to spit it out, they don't want to. What else can they do?" "One word: greed." Natsuya Suzuki picked his ear. "You've been following me to collect debts for almost 2 months. Next time you come and I'll watch. If you can't get the money back, I won't give you food. Do you hear me?" Looking at the naughty child, Natsuya Suzuki didn't know if he understood. Natsuya Suzuki rubbed his eyebrows. But at this time, the room suddenly darkened, as if there was a power outage. Natsuya Suzuki wasn't afraid of the sudden darkness, including the child sitting in the corner. Because the child had been told not to open his eyes casually, but it didn't mean he couldn't see food. The child had a vision similar to night vision goggles, even if his eyes were closed. At this time, for some reason, Suzuki Shea raised her head as if to look at the sky, but this was underground. His face was filled with horror and his eyes were wide open. Then, he hugged his head tightly with both hands and slowly knelt down on the ground with a pained expression on his face, until the short moment of power outage passed and the room was bright again. The child subconsciously walked to Natsuya Suzuki's side and reached out to touch his shoulder. She found that his shoulder was still trembling slightly. At this moment, Natsuya Suzuki suddenly swatted away. "Don't touch me." It seemed that he was still afraid of something. Thailand, Chao Phraya, Pathum Thani province. It was like an answer to the 80s and 90s of the last century. Low buildings, dirty and crowded city street. In an ordinary hotel in the town, a black man was doing the extremely difficult Russian style of prostrating. Looking at his sweaty state, he had probably been doing it for a while. The black man, Abbas, was from South Africa. He had participated in 17 small-scale wars and was skilled in using all kinds of explosive tools. His melee combat skills were top-notch, and he could hold his breath underwater for up to 5 minutes in a high-intensity battle. Currently, he was one of the explosives experts in the Yokai mercenary group. Abbas's personal information quickly flashed through the mind of a man with an Asian face sitting by the window at this time. The man should be young. He had a crew cut, sharp facial features, and a beard. Wang Yuechuan, but his name was Guy at this time. Guy was a name to hide his identity. His identity had been completely changed. He became a field soldier who fled for his life after committing a murder. About 2 months ago, he followed the organization's instructions and arrived in Hong Kong. After half a month of self-training, he used a Hong Kong fishing boat to sneak into Thailand. Finally, he met the people of the mercenary group called Yokai. After passing the test, he officially became a member of Yokai and was assigned to work with Abbas. Wang Yuechuan's current persona was a man of few words. Looking at the lively street outside the window, Wang Yuechuan, Guy flicked the butt of the cigarette out. Although he had successfully joined the Yokai, he still couldn't get more information, nor could he investigate more of the internal affairs of the mercenary group. He hadn't even officially participated in their operations. Although he had officially joined, it was likely that he would need to go through several missions before he could truly become a member. Being an undercover was a very long job, and it was also a job that would become more and more dangerous as time passed. In the Yokai mercenary group, every mercenary had extremely strong individual combat ability. Otherwise, it would be impossible to enter the top ranks of international mercenary groups with only 99 members. Among this group of people, Guy thought that he could only be ranked in the top 60 of this group of thugs by relying on his own combat ability. But if he used the ability learned from the Book of the Dead, it was naturally a different story. But that was an ability that couldn't be easily used in front of others. However, his low-level qualities were enough for him to be recognized. There was no need to show more. Moreover, he couldn't show any anxious emotions because he was a man of few words. The black man, Abbas, had finished his training. At this time, he got up and became more energetic. "I'm hungry. Go eat something, yellow monkey." Abbas liked to call Orientals yellow monkeys. In addition to Guy, there were a few yellow people in the Yokai group from different countries in Southeast Asia. But in Abbas's mouth, they were all yellow monkeys. Of course, this wasn't a provocation. It was just that it was difficult for an Asian to distinguish a black person. It was also difficult for a black person to distinguish a yellow person, probably. Guy didn't say anything. He casually glanced at Abbas and continued to look out the window. A boss was no longer surprised by this eccentric guy. He shrugged and didn't say anything. He went out by himself. Guy was still looking out the street. His current identity caused him to spend every day in extreme nervousness, as if he was constantly being watched by something. Was it someone from Ioke, or did they not trust him? Or was it the people who assigned him this time? They didn't trust him either? Guy lit another cigarette. He had never smoked before. But in just a short 2 months, smoking had become a daily occurrence for him. Suddenly, a cry of surprise came from the street, and the entire street was completely dark at this moment. Only the burners on the street were still lit. Kia looked further into the distance. It was also pitch black. Is there a power outage? He thought. But he didn't care too much about it. Instead, he felt comfortable when the entire world turned dark. That feeling of being watched disappeared. Guy smiled and slowly closed his eyes, enjoying this rare moment of peace. But the moment he closed his eyes, he felt an indescribable fear. Guy abruptly opened his eyes. He felt a layer of cold sweat on his forehead. He blankly looked out the window again, or perhaps what he didn't know was that the gaze that had always been there didn't leave. It was just looking somewhere else. It was looking at the dark night. On the rooftop of a small building not far away, the black figure was prostrating on the ground in fear and trepidation, shivering. "My master, why are you so angry?" In the dark hemisphere of the moon, the ocean suddenly became chaotic. Countless huge whirlpools appeared in half of the Pacific Ocean. The undercurrent under the sea had already surged to the surface. The dark sea was like a huge mouth that could swallow people whole. A large number of sea tornadoes instantly rolled up into the sky. One after another, they were like countless huge pillars that connected the sky. The air seemed to have solidified and become heavy. Uneasiness and fear spread across the hemisphere of the moon at the speed of light in an instant. All those who possessed power could feel death looming over them. Trembling, curling up, the evil in the world seemed to be frightened at this moment, and the good seemed to be spurned by the world until the light returned. Everything returned to the ordinary night 10 seconds ago. In the lobby, Taisetsu, who was wiping the Jianlu sword, frowned. After feeling dizzy for a while, he shook his head hard and subconsciously looked at the maid who was busy at the counter. But at this moment, a figure rushed out from upstairs. Nero's face was covered in ink. "You want to fight? I'm ready." Her eyes were wide open and she was excited. "Yi, miss?" Taisetsu ignored Nero. The maid put down the cup that she was wiping. When the cup was put down, rings of terrifying black flames instantly burned the entire floor of the lobby from under Yuye's feet. The black flames on the ground began to change and connected into complicated symbols. All of a sudden, something seemed to slowly rise up from the black flames. It was a spear. Upon closer inspection, it was a spear with a flag wrapped around it. A weapon. Taisetsu and Nero's expressions changed slightly. They had never seen the maid holding a weapon, or they had never seen her being serious. They would be killed the moment they met. This was the only thing that Taisetsu could feel at this moment. However, this terrifying atmosphere almost disappeared in a moment. The black flames on the floor dissipated instantly. The voice of the boss sounded at this moment. "I'm fine, you don't need to come over. Just take it that I just sneezed impolitely." The boss didn't come back. This was just his voice, but no one would doubt that it wasn't the boss's voice. The maid holding the spear flag loosened her palm at this moment, and the spear flag flashed and disappeared. "Yi, miss?" The maid of the club picked up the cup again, wiping it slowly, and said indifferently, "We only need to follow the master's orders." Time was still, at least in this area, everything was still in this short period of time, as if it had completely escaped into another space. Under the night sky in front of the balcony, little blue light spots gathered. Not long after, the manager Araya with blue hair and blue eyes appeared. He opened his eyes slowly, as if he had just woken up from a dormant sleep. The position where Araya appeared was slightly lower than the boss on the balcony. Asking about the degree of space fragmentation in subworld number 003, whether to execute the world-destroying procedure. The emotionless Araya stared at the boss on the balcony without blinking. Even though it was dark, it couldn't block his sight. But he couldn't see the appearance of the owner of the root authority at this moment. Chaos. It was a face that looked like the primal chaos. There were only two balls of light that looked like eyes. As if a long time had passed, as if it was just a moment. The face that could only be described as chaos gradually became clear. I don't intend to change the proposal I gave you last time. I'm sorry for the fragmentation of the subworld space, Luocio sighed slowly. If you can't completely repair it, I'll help you. The maximum allowable fragmentation range is to ensure perfect repair. Boss Luo nodded, saying indifferently, if there's a next time, I'll pay attention. I'll try to control it within this range. You go back, I want to be alone. The stillness here, according to the normal flow of time, can be activated after 10 minutes. Understood, a power outage? It felt like at least 10 minutes had passed, but it also felt like a few breaths. The world suddenly became dark, but it soon became bright again. Maybe it's the peak period of electricity consumption. Short power outages are common for AC power, Luocio said indifferently. The cold weather in the south hadn't passed yet, and it wasn't the peak period of electricity consumption. Who was he kidding? Song Ying opened her mouth, but she didn't say such words in the end. There were simple rattan chairs and tables on the balcony, which were usually used to drink tea and read books. Luocio sat down, motioning Song Ying to sit down as well. This place happened to block the view of the living room with the curtain, but one ear was quietly sticking to the glass inside at this time. Luocio knocked on the glass of the sliding door casually, and the owner of this ear muttered angrily and hid back. Your mom. Well, Miss Rin seems to be afraid of you. Song Ying smiled embarrassedly, and didn't know when she had recovered. She returned to her original self. Tell me about it. Luocio looked at Song Ying, these things before and after. You just said it was not an accident, but man-made. This was the Luocio in Song Ying's impression, not the terrifying Luocio from a while ago, but the Luocio who was not angry when she pulled him out in the middle of the night and would even make breakfast carefully. Song Ying subconsciously breathed a sigh of relief, and blurted out to interrupt Luocio, that, you're really not angry anymore? Luocio looked at Song Ying without blinking. Song Ying shrank her neck. She was afraid after all. She whispered, I'm wrong. You continue, I won't interrupt, Luocio sighed. That's the problem. Since you're here, you should have found something. Tell me about it. Song Ying quietly glanced at the living room, and Soren Xiling was still watching at this time with her eyes wide open, but she was far away, sitting on the sofa and hugging a pillow. Her expression was almost twisted together, like an auntie who was watching the finale of a TV series. Here's a report, you can take a look first. Song Ying turned on the phone and handed it to Luocio. Luocio looked at it. Song Ying said, although our family doesn't have any property in China, we still have some connections. The information in this report was found by a friend of my grandpa's some time ago. The Professor Ouyang mentioned in the report was the forensic doctor who complicated your father's case. According to his confession, the bullet that killed your father was actually a bullet from the police. But later, someone secretly paid him to change the bullet used by the criminal in the report, and secretly changed the bullet used by the evidence. Looking at the expressionless Luocio, Song Ying took a deep breath and continued, this time, I'm here because of my grandpa's idea. He wants to find out the truth of this matter. Grandpa said that the people of the Song family can't die without knowing the reason. I see. Luocio returned the phone to Song Ying. Now, think about how to deal with this prank of yours, okay? Okay. Chapter 1171. Performing Arts? Ren Xiling glanced at the kitchen. Since coming out from the balcony, Luocio didn't say a word and went straight into the kitchen. He pushed open the door and closed it. Renziling didn't know what he was doing. "I'm sorry, Miss Ren." Song Ying put on a sincere and apologetic face. "I have a lot of homework recently, and there will be an exam soon. I'm going crazy, so I danced on the street to release myself." Renziling was still frowning. Song Ying's heart skipped a beat. "I just had this idea. I didn't expect Miss Ren to be so nice. You should understand, right? The feeling of riding a tiger and not being able to get off. Besides, I didn't expect that Junior Luochio is actually your son." Renziling was still frowning. Song Ying braced herself and said, "Speaking of which, I haven't seen Junior Luochio for a long time. I heard that he transferred to another school. I didn't expect to see him again. Miss Ren, are you listening?" "So it's all fake," Renziling said expressionlessly. "I'm sorry." Song Ying didn't dare to look at Renziling's eyes. "I know the prank was a bit too much. I'm sorry." Her attitude was very sincere, but Renziling suddenly couldn't tell the difference between real and fake. More importantly, this child was a drama queen. Renziling sighed. "So, the foreign encounter and love at first sight are all fake?" "Fake," Renziling sighed again and glanced at Song Ying's belly. "Then, your belly is also fake?" "Of course." Song Ying nodded. She studied in an aristocratic school since she was a child. Her father, Song Tianyu, was a person who attached great importance to tradition. Strictly speaking, the princess of the Song dynasty lived a very disciplined life. Well, regarding the problem of how to treat men, Renziling directly fell on the sofa, pinched a pillow and crazily attacked. "Didn't you say you were an acting major? Would it kill you to perform for 2 more days? I'll definitely match it. What's wrong with making me happy for a few more days? You're looking down on me. What the f***ck? My grandson." "Ha!" Song Ying opened her mouth slightly, suddenly not knowing what to say. Although he had long known from Yukiko's report that Renziling's personality was somewhat different from the rest, seeing her in person today was indeed better than seeing her in person. Renziling suddenly stopped and stood up, which gave Song Ying a fright. "He's not happy." After saying that, Nanny Ren was like a child venting her anger. She stomped into the bathroom and took a bath. "My grandson." Not long after that, Luochio walked out of the kitchen. He glanced at the bewildered Song Ying and said indifferently, "Have you dealt with it? Should be right?" Song Ying awkwardly laughed twice. Luochio nodded and said casually, "It's late, go back." Song Ying was stunned and subconsciously said, "No, it's not early, but it's not convenient now. I won't disturb you." Luochio slightly smiled and looked at Song Ying without saying anything. "I know. I'll go." Song Ying rolled her eyes. "Wu Qing." Miss Song reluctantly left. "Damn, this guy won't send me off?" When it was time to close the door. "Tomorrow I'll find a time to contact you," Luochio suddenly said. "I'm not happy, call me if you want." Song Ying lightly snorted, closed the door, and then closed the security door outside. The sound was not loud, so it did not disturb anyone. Renziling walked out while wiping her hair and casually sat down on the sofa. "What about the child?" She went back. Luochio walked over with a bowl of something, put it on the table, and said indifferently, "Drink it." "What's this?" "It's to cure the hangover. Drink it if you don't want to have a headache tomorrow." "Oh." Renziling obediently held the bowl, took a sip, and found that the taste was not bad. "By the way, what were you talking about outside just now? You didn't hide anything from me, right?" Luochio did not speak, but suddenly took a medicine box, sat down, and pointed at Renziling's feet. "Disinfect and apply medicine." Luochio said expressionlessly, "Do you want to be unable to wear shoes tomorrow?" That was because she took off her shoes and ran on the ground while chasing a thief. Renziling embarrassedly laughed twice and did not speak. Like a goldfish, she sipped the hangover soup and watched Luochio carefully disinfect the abrasions on the soles of her feet. "I told you, how can my son be a scumbag?" Ouch, 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 be gentle, Luocio sighed. You know the pain, next time don't take off your shoes to chase a thief, this is not a TV drama. I know, I won't. Renziling blinked, suddenly rubbed Luocio's hand with her feet, and said with a smile, By the way, what's wrong with this songing? How come I've never heard that you have a female friend? I think this child seems to be a little bit interested in you. Son, tell me. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Wrong, wrong. The medicine is applied. Luocio stood up. Wear your sneakers tomorrow, remember to wear socks too. Hey, hey, tell me. Like a snake, Nanny Rin crawled over from the sofa at this time. Luocio went back to the room and directly turned off the light in the living room. In the room, only a desk lamp was lit. Luocio sat in front of the desk, reached out to take a photo album from the bookshelf next to him, and opened it. He was silent. Not long after, Luocio opened the door and saw that Renziling had returned to the room to rest and sleep, so he left the house. Disappear, reappear. At this time, Luocio was already at a place far away from home, on the roof of the tallest building in the city. He did not choose to return to the club immediately. He reached out his hand in front of Luocio, streaks of mysterious light appeared. He seemed to be standing in front of a giant screen made up of hundreds of screens. Every small screen showed a different scene at this time. Different angles, different positions, and different lines of sight, but they all replayed the same thing. A few years ago, a robbery of a cash truck in this city. Warning! Warning! You have been surrounded. Put down your weapons and surrender immediately. Report. Report. The criminals have a lot of firepower. They have gone crazy. What should we do? Open fire. We must not let this group of thugs escape. Call for help, I've been shot. Snipers are ready. Report over. Be careful. The thugs have grenades in their hands. Captain Luo is injured. Quickly go and support him. Go quickly. Luocio reached out his hand, and almost all the screens were fast-forwarded at this time. The moment a bullet was fired, all the screens were switched to the same scene at this moment. A frightened face appeared on every screen at this time. Finally, the screen suddenly darkened, and the hundreds of screens finally combined together to form this frightened face. It was the person who fired the last bullet. Luocio watched silently and finally sighed. He waved his hand to disperse the mysterious light, lowered his head, and said nothing. In the night sky, a figure was moving rapidly. This figure was so fast that it almost swept across half of the city in a breath. It seemed to be looking for something. Finally, it suddenly stopped, as if it had found something, and quickly descended from the night sky. As soon as it landed, the Shinryu of Kelowna, Long Shirua couldn't help but frown. Just now, the strange phenomenon was caused by you? What are you doing here? Getting some fresh air. Turning around. Luocio saw Long Shirua's anxious face. She should have returned to the city later than him. Even though she had returned, Luocio did not think of greeting her. Long Shirua was still frowning. At the same time, she walked forward with a mobile phone in her hand. At this time, the mobile phone was continuously making some kind of beep 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 sound. It was like the sound of a certain chat app being refreshed. Did you hear that? This time, you've blown up some old fellows who have been in closed-door training for 10 or 20 years. In this group, everyone is confused and scared. I don't know what to say at all. If you really want to destroy the world, then just do it. Stop scaring people. What are you trying to do? Do you want to tell the world how terrifying you are? For a long time, although Long Shirua was afraid of this guy and the shop behind him, she knew better than anyone that the so-called invincible power of the Shinryu of Kelowna was a joke in front of this guy. However, Long Shirua always felt that Luocio was not the kind of demon king who wanted to destroy the world. He was more like a spectator who came from a higher place outside the world. However, not long ago, in just 10 seconds, the dragon veins of Kelowna were rioting. If Mount Tai didn't cause the 12 ancestral veins to erupt, the earth veins would be in a weakened state. Such a disaster would be unimaginable. Even so, it took her a lot of effort to calm down the rioting of the main veins. After that, the communication between the Taoist and monster realms exploded, especially since it was only a few days after the press conference of the Mount Tai incident. At this moment, the true dragon of the divine land could no longer be described as simply anxious. During the time of Mount Tai, the Tao demons, the administrative bureau, her, and even the state apparatus had all been mobilized, barely suppressing the situation for the time being. However, they still had to deal with many remaining problems, as well as a large number of international movements. This guy, on the other hand, had caused such a terrifying commotion. Long Shiro widened her eyes. "Do you think I'm not tired to death? I'm sorry. Do you think a simple apology will?" Long Shiro wanted to roar subconsciously, but she suddenly froze. She didn't see the usual calmness on this guy's face, nor did he have the usual etiquette. He looked more like an ordinary person now. She asked tentatively, Did you encounter any problems?" Luochu slowly sighed. "Indeed, but it's okay. I should be able to solve it. Tonight's incident wasn't my intention, and I didn't think it would be like this. But don't worry, I've got it under control. The Mount Tai incident can't be covered up completely, and more strange things will happen in the future. Just take it as one of them." "What do you mean?" Luochu said indifferently. "Miss Long, shouldn't you know what kind of impact it will bring after the recovery of Aura?" Long Shiro was silent. Luochu seemed to have returned to his usual appearance, which made her feel indescribable irritation, especially when the chatting software on her phone kept ringing. Shinryu of Kelowna turned off her phone angrily, stuffing it into her clothes. She took out a pack of cigarettes, and was about to light it up subconsciously. However, Luochu was looking at her calmly. Miss Long looked away, stuffing the cigarette back into the pack. "Don't misunderstand. I don't smoke often. I only smoke once in a while. I'm much better." Luochu smiled. "Just smoke if you want. Such a small amount of harmful substances will be wiped out by Miss Long's power." Are you really okay?" Long Shiro asked tentatively. Luochu shook his head, looking up at the waning moon, and suddenly said, "If possible, can Miss Long accompany me for a while? The moon is quite beautiful tonight. Of course, I'll give you a discount if you want to order anything." "Humph. Do you think I'm like you?" Long Shiro snorted. Profiteer, rogue. "Why should I accompany you just because you want me to?" But she didn't leave. Luochu smiled and then looked at the moon. Long Shiro stared at the moon and felt uncomfortable. Several times she wanted to say something, but no words came out. The atmosphere was so quiet that she didn't know what to do. Don't you have a maid following you around?" Finally, Kelowna Shinryu-sama couldn't help but ask, "Why don't you let her accompany you?" "Because Miss Long just happened to appear at this time." Luochu sighed. "Previously, I just wanted to be alone." Long Shiro looked at him, and took 2 steps forward. "What? Don't tell me you had a fight?" "Maybe it's a good thing to have a fight." Luochu didn't understand. "What are you talking about?" Long Shiro muttered, and then rolled her eyes. "Tell me, what's the matter this time? Although you're not much, you don't look like someone who would get angry for no reason, right?" Luochu looked at Long Shiro, and didn't say anything for a long time. "What are you looking at?" Luochu smiled. "Miss Long, have you seen the entire world?" Kelowna Shinryu was stunned, and subconsciously said, Did you take the wrong medicine today?" She only felt a very strange power, weak. It was as weak as an ant, almost undetectable. However, the scene in front of him suddenly changed dramatically. She saw stars in the sky, and the moon was much closer. She saw the world. Half of it was blue and white, and the other half was dark, slowly rotating. It was right under her feet. Kelowna Shinryu felt extremely weak. This was a place where the earth of Kelowna couldn't transmit power. "Just like looking at me like this." Sound was still transmitted, ignoring certain laws. Luochu said slowly, and at the same time, reached out his hand and grabbed the huge sphere in the sky. Because of the distance, the sphere was easily caught in his small hand. It was like a blue bubble that could be crushed with a squeeze. "What are you doing?" Long Shirua was shocked. After a while, Luochu put down his hand and turned to Long Shirua and said softly, "Nothing, there's something I value in here. How can I bear to destroy it now?" Let me down!" Kelowna Shinryu roared. Chapter 1172. Long Shirua didn't feel at ease until she returned to the pet hospital and sat down. She was once again closely connected with the earth. She still felt her legs were a little soft. Long Shirua leaned her head on the chair, and the tilted back of the chair led her to look at the yellowish ceiling above her head. "Because I want Miss Long to become more beautiful. I don't want to do anything. There's something I value in it. How can I destroy it now?" Suddenly, Mr. Shinryu patted his cheeks with both hands and stood up. "Damn. What's going on? Is he possessed by evil?" If the Shinryu of Kelowna could be possessed by evil, then there would be nothing between the Taoist and monster realm. Sister Long. Sister Long. At this time, Luo Dance pushed open the door and came in. The little butterfly monster, wearing an apron and holding a feather duster, saw her sister Long's face was a little red. She tilted her head and asked, "What's wrong with you? Do you feel uncomfortable?" "What's the matter?" Long Shirua coughed slightly. Luo Dance said, "Sister Long, have you found the reason for the sudden blackout? It was so scary just now." "Sort of." Long Shirua sat down again and pinched her eyebrows. If she opened the chatting software on the phone, it would explode. She felt that her body was hollowed out at the thought of logging in and leaving a message. If there was an official Kelowna supernatural being, then her words were basically equivalent to an official explanation. "What's the reason?" "You're too young to understand it." Long Shirua wanted to send this stupid butterfly away, so she answered casually, "It's all right now. You can continue to clean up. Especially the consultation room. I'll see if we can reopen it in a few days." "Oh, by the way, there's one more thing," Luo Dance said. "I just received a call from Xiaofei asking if you were there. He asked if you could come over." "Xiaofei?" Long Shirua frowned subconsciously. She and Luo Dance came back first. Emo Xiaofei should be back by now. But what Long Shirua didn't expect was that Emo Xiaofei didn't only come back with Zhuifeng this time. He also brought Zixing, the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan, and several of her followers. From Emo Xiaofei, Long Shirua knew that the Greedy clan had found out about Zhuifeng's identity. Long Shirua had no choice but to meet Zixing, the young master of the Greedy Wolf clan, alone in the room. "Cut the formalities. I don't like those complicated formalities. Just say what you want to say." "Lord Long, when we were about to arrive, we suddenly felt a terrifying aura. It was indescribable. May I ask Lord Long, what's the reason?" "So it's because of this." Long Shirua muttered in her heart, and then made up some nonsense. "It's not a strange reason. You should know what happened on Mount Tai, right?" Zixing nodded. Long Shirua continued to make up some nonsense. "I've said it in the meeting after that. The Long Sha is actually the resentment accumulated in Kelowna for countless years." Zixing frowned. "But hasn't the Long Sha been eliminated? What does this have to do with the Long Sha?" Long Shirua waved her hand and made up some nonsense. "It takes 100 days to recover from the injury. After the operation, you have to lie down for a while, right? Although the Long Sha has been eliminated, there are still remnants of resentment under the earth. You also know that this time, the spiritual energy is radiant, and there is a gap in the earth, so the earth veins have carried out a self-purification to eliminate the remaining resentment again, which will cause some strange phenomena." "I see." Zixing nodded, but looking at her expression, she didn't believe it. Long Shirua didn't want everyone to believe such a lousy reason, so she changed the topic. You didn't come here just to ask about this, right? Again, let's get straight to the point. May I ask Lord Long, when I first came here, had the Wolf Lord awakened? Zixing asked quite directly. Long Shirua said calmly, yes, I did find this generation's greedy wolf star before you came. But at that time, he had just awakened, and his situation was very unstable. I was worried that Juefeng couldn't control this power, so I didn't tell him anything, and planned to let him learn how to control his own power before considering the matter of the greedy wolf clan. Do you have any opinion? Lord Long, Zixing said blankly, although you are the Shinryu, if it comes to how to train the power of the greedy wolf star, Zixing thinks that my clan is more suitable. Long Shirua held her chin with both hands and said, putting aside the inheritance of the greedy wolf clan, you and Juefeng have known each other before. This child's mind is very easy to guess. I believe you should also be able to see what kind of temperament he has. I won't talk about the fate of your greedy wolf clan first. I only ask you, are you willing? Or do you think Juefeng will follow the fate of the greedy wolf clan? The rules can't be broken. Zixing shook her head and suddenly said, then Lord Long, are you willing to accept your fate? Long Shirua looked at Zixing blankly. After a while, the young master of the greedy wolf clan gave a slight salute. I have greeted them. But these few days, we will stay for the time being according to Lord Wolf's intention. If Lord Long has any orders, you can find someone to inform the Four Seasons Hotel. Then, Zixing will take her leave. The door closed with a thud. Long Shirua breathed a sigh of relief and muttered, the rules can't be broken. It's really ironic. The wolf who advocates freedom the most is actually bound by the rules. But I'm not qualified to criticize others. While she was sighing, Emo Xiaofei also came to Long Shirua after Zixing. The master and disciple met and exchanged a few words. Emo Xiaofei then came to ask about the blackout. Long Shirua sent another wave of lousy excuses. Unlike Zixing, Emo Xiaofei believed it. Seeing that Emo Xiaofei believed it, Kelowna's Shinryu braced himself and sent a wave of messages on the chat software. He found that everyone had stopped spamming and looked enlightened. Then, they collectively went offline and did their own things. Is there anything else? Long Shirua looked up at Emo Xiaofei. Seeing that he seemed to have something to say, she asked curiously. Master, is Juefeng really going to the plateau, the residence of the greedy wolf clan? Emo Xiaofei asked seriously. Long Shirua thought for a while and said, the greedy wolf clan has its own inheritance, or an irresistible fate. Even if Juefeng doesn't want to go now, one day, he will go himself. Every generation of greedy wolf can't escape. You should still remember the words I told you about Juefeng. Then, Emo Xiaofei nodded and said with a serious face, if this is the case, then I want to accompany Juefeng. At least, I can watch him. Long Shirua looked at Emo Xiaofei up and down and suddenly said, use your strongest psychokinesis to attack me. Master? Just do what I ask you to do. Why are you so troublesome? Excuse me. Emo Xiaofei nodded, then took a deep breath and concentrated all his mind. His strongest psychokinesis could manipulate gravity. This was the ability he comprehended in Yen Wuyue's world. Everything in the room was pressed down by a strong pressure in an instant. But at the same time, there was also a strong force contending against it. Emo Xiaofei kept pressing down while Long Shirua kept lifting up. The two forces maintained a balance, so the room was not damaged at all. But Emo Xiaofei's face gradually turned red while Long Shirua looked calm. This contest lasted for more than 10 minutes. Emo Xiaofei took a deep breath and the gravity suddenly disappeared. Long Shirua also waved her hand to remove her true dragon's power. She looked at Emo Xiaofei and frowned. Who did you meet on your trip to Mount Tai? Or what did you encounter? Master, Emo Xiaofei was startled. His face suddenly became unnatural. Your strength has increased by at least 5 times since I saw you last year. Long Shirua frowned. This speed is too fast. I'm afraid your body can't adapt to it. Furthermore, I can faintly sense a somewhat familiar energy from your body. Master, actually Emo Xiaofei gritted his teeth and was about to speak. Well, that's it. Unexpectedly, Long Shirua suddenly waved her hand and said, You're my apprentice. If you don't have any adventures, how can I show my face? Besides, it's a good thing that your strength has improved. I can feel that your heart is still there. I believe you can make good use of it. As for Xuefeng's matter, you can think about it yourself. Go or not, decide by yourself. Don't ask me about everything. Then I'll go home first. Emo Xiaofei nodded. Go ahead. You've been away from home for so long. Your parents must be worried. Long Shirua waved her hand. After Emo Xiaofei went out, Long Shirua lowered the blinds on the window, watching his back disappear in the street. I felt something was wrong the last time we met. This time, why is the Emperor's sword with him? Long Shirua suddenly smiled bitterly. The Emperor's sword and the contemporary greedy wolf's star met. Isn't it chaotic enough? Is it the scheme of that damn profiteer again? Kelowna's Shinryu scratched his head, taking out a cigarette box and lighting it skillfully. What's wrong with smoking? But after taking a puff, she strangely pinched it. She rushed out at once. Agile, don't clean the house. I'm hungry, make me something to eat. I want to watch TV series. I want a holiday. I won't go out these days. I won't see anyone. Don't let anyone in. It was bustling with activity. The public car of the criminal police brigade in the city went out and then came in. It seemed to be very busy. This was not a good thing for Mahoud. The frequency of the car going out proved that many crimes were taking place in this city. Perhaps every policeman hoped that they could become moldy. At least it meant that it was peaceful outside. After parking the car in the parking lot, Sir Ma, who had a second child at an old age, seemed to have put on weight again. At this moment, Sir Ma, who was drinking soy milk and holding a newspaper, struggled to get out of the car. But it was probably because he was too fat. Officer Ma found that this movement was extremely difficult. Finally, he succeeded, but unfortunately, the soy milk was spilled on the ground, and at the same time, it also stained his pants. Well, isn't this too unlucky? Sir Ma couldn't help but curse his bad luck, wiping his pants inelegantly. At this moment, another car slowly drove in and stopped beside Sir Ma. The car window slowly rolled down, and a well-dressed man in his 40s poked his head out, smiling slightly. Sir Ma, long time no see. Are you okay? It's you, Gawain. Hoda was stunned at first, then quickly said, Bad luck, bad luck. Alas, it seems that I really need to control my diet. The man got out of the car holding a briefcase. This kind of stain is not easy to wash. I know a good laundry. I'll write down the address for you later, okay? Of course. Sir Ma said happily. My wife gave me this pair of pants. I'll probably be beaten to death if they get dirty. The man. Gawain smiled. By the way, I heard that your wife is pregnant. Well done, Sir Ma, you're still vigorous despite your age. Congratulations, congratulations. Hee hee. This was basically what Sir Ma had been hearing recently, and even some of his close friends had called to congratulate him. Basically, he had been smiling like a pig recently. Mahoud asked curiously, By the way, what brings you here? Oh, nothing, I'm just cooperating with the Bureau's work, Gawain said casually. There's a prisoner in the second team who wants to do a profile, so their captain asked me to come here. Oh. I see, then I'll leave you to it. Sir Ma nodded. I won't walk you out, you're familiar with me anyway. I'm going to find a place to change my pants first. After all, I still need to pay attention to my image. Okay, I'll hang up then. I have to go back to class in the afternoon. Gawain smiled, patting Mahoud's shoulder and left with his briefcase. He stood there and looked around before leaving. Sir Ma, who's this guy? He looks a little familiar. Lin Feng appeared behind Mahoud with a bag of steamed buns, and asked curiously. Ma Howd, who was startled, glared at him, and said, "His name is Gawain. He's now a lecturer in criminal psychology at the University of Political Science and Law." Now? Lin Feng was stunned and asked subconsciously, "What about before?" Ma Howd said, "Before, he was the captain of the second unit in our bureau and made a lot of contributions. We often worked together with the second unit, so we became familiar with each other. Later on, he retired from the bureau for some reason and transferred to become a lecturer at the university." But what? Sir Ma looked at Gawain's back. "I always feel that there's something missing, but they don't get along well." Only Captain Luo could say a few words to him. Gawain's father-in-law is the big boss of the provincial bureau, and the big boss's son-in-law is a little different. Maybe it's because of their different identities, but I always feel like I'm chatting across servers. Wow, Sir Ma, you even know how to chat across servers. Go to hell. Ma Howd glared at him. At this time, a team member hurriedly ran out from inside. He happened to bump into the two people who were chatting here, so he jogged over. "Sir Ma, Sir Lin, that's great, you're both here. I was in a hurry to find you." The team member panted. "What happened?" Ma Howd frowned. Chapter 1173. The next day, Song Ying didn't receive a call from Luoqiu until lunchtime. After gritting her teeth at the phone for a while, Miss Song hurriedly declined Zhang Qingrui's invitation for lunch. She drove the car borrowed from the Zhang family and arrived at the park. Luoqiu should have arrived earlier. When Song Ying arrived, she found him looking at his cell phone. "I say, can you at least find a place where you can drink?" Song Ying looked around. Since it was noon, there were few people in the park. It was quiet, and it seemed to be okay to talk about things. However, even though she complained, she still sat on the bench. "What are you looking at?" "There was a blackout last night, so I read what the internet said," Luoqiu said casually and turned off his cell phone. "Let's continue the topic from last night." "Have you digested it?" Song Ying asked cautiously. "Thank you for your concern. Who cares about you?" Song Ying snorted. "If Grandpa didn't ask me to take good care of you, I wouldn't have come. How dare you kick me out of the house?" "Eat, you should be hungry." Luoqiu smiled and picked up a small paper bag beside him. It was hot and fragrant. Of course, it was food. "What's this?" Song Ying took it and asked curiously. "Egg boy." Luoqiu said softly. "There was a cart selling it. I thought you didn't eat anything, so I bought some. Don't you like sweet things?" "It tastes good." Song Ying took a bite, and her taste buds were conquered by the rich egg flavor and the fragrant texture. She temporarily turned Qintian. "Have you found anything in your family?" Luoqiu suddenly asked. "What do you mean by our family and your family?" Song Ying rolled her eyes. Then she took out a tablet, opened it, and put it in Luoqiu's hand. "The investigation was basically done by Grandpa's acquaintances here. According to the information, we've basically investigated all the people involved in the case back then. It would have been better if we didn't investigate. After investigating, we found out. Luoqiu, you're really something. What kind of strong men are your father's brothers? Interpol officers, military majors, and even confidential information?" Ignoring Song Ying's muttering, Luoqiu quietly looked at the information on the tablet. It had to be said that the completeness of the information was quite high. Ordinary people would not be able to achieve such a degree of completeness. Although there were many deviations from what he saw last night, it included the movements of many people in the past few years. Song Ying said as she nibbled on the egg, "We've found several professional analysts to analyze it, and we've circled out a few suspects. Generally speaking, if the murderer appears in the hands of an insider, it is impossible for there not to be anything strange. There are always clues to be found." As Song Ying spoke, she reached out and swiped on the tablet. "Look at this person, his name is Zhou Yusheng. After the case was over, his gun disappeared. It was said that he accidentally lost it during the fight. He was also shot and was hospitalized for a period of time. But considering that the fatal bullet was from the police, this person is quite suspicious. He has now been promoted to the captain of the second team of the Municipal Bureau, but there is nothing strange about his account. This is the second one. This person was not originally on duty that day, but on the day of the incident, he suddenly changed shifts with someone else. Also, there was a hijacking of the cash truck, and it happened to be on his patrol route. You can say it's a coincidence, but it's too much of a coincidence. By the way, do you want to eat? Song Ying tore off a piece of egg and handed it over. But Luocio swiped to the third set of information. Song Ying smacked her lips in dissatisfaction, but she still said patiently, "This person is called Gawain, and he was the captain of the second team at that time. We've already investigated his background. His father-in-law is one of the higher-ups of the company. According to the information we got from the old forensic Dr. Ouyang, if there is someone who can cover up this matter, then this person should have a lot of power in the system. This Gawain's father-in-law fits the description perfectly. Also, this Gawain's subsequent actions are quite strange. Half a year after the incident, he delayed his work and went to the university to become a teacher. Hello. Are you listening?" "Yeah," Luocio replied simply. Song Ying frowned. "Basically, this is what we have so far. What do you think? Don't worry, this time we will fully cooperate with you. You can investigate however you want and whoever you want." Luocio turned off the tablet. "Are you free in the afternoon?" "Yeah, I'm okay." Song Ying shrugged. "Accompany me to the university." Outside the cordon, there was a crowd of people. The current location was a private house in the old district. The crime scene was on the third floor of this house. Just as they arrived at the scene, Sir Ma looked around cautiously like a thief. At this time, the team members who arrived first reminded him, "Sir Ma, Miss Rin didn't come, don't worry. Go away, do you think I'm afraid of her? Let me tell you, if she dares to come, I'll kick her out in minutes." Oh, when Ma Haod and Lin Feng arrived with the team, they smelled a strong stench as soon as they entered the door. "Hey Xiao Bao, are you on duty today?" Lin Feng saw Xiao Bao from the forensic department and hurriedly went up to greet him. "What's the situation here?" Xiao Bao slightly raised his gloved hand. "Sir Ma, Sir Lin, I think you'll be busy. It's a dismembered body case, and it's very serious." Dismembered body? Ma Haod was stunned. This was a major case, which often involved extremely aggressive criminals, and was particularly harmful to the society. Xiao Bao nodded. "Moreover, at present we can't confirm the identity of the deceased, because the body is not complete. Currently, the body tissues that can be found are mostly minced meat. As for how much we can find, we need to go back and piece it together. But I found the pelvic bone of the deceased. For the time being, we can confirm that the deceased is a male. As for the age, we need to do another bone age examination." The corpse was stored in a freezer. Sir Ma craned his head to take a look. He saw the meat and bones that were cut, sawed, or chopped were piled up randomly at this time. There should have been a lot of frost on the walls of the freezer, but it had melted. At this moment, it was soaked together with the defrosted meat and bones, wantonly emitting a rotten smell. But the meat and bones in the center were not completely stirred up. The sebum, minced meat, and bones were still stuck together at this moment. Ma Haod couldn't help but gulp. But Officer Lin didn't have such good composure, and suddenly covered his mouth. Damn it! How much hatred did he have? Sir Ma frowned, looking around the room while asking about the process of finding the corpse. The policeman brought an old man in his 50s. "Sir Ma, this is the informant. He is the landlord of this house. According to him, when he came to check this morning, he smelled something unusual, so he opened the freezer out of curiosity and found the corpse inside." "Check." Sir Ma glanced at the landlord. "What did you check?" "Oh, officer, it's like this," the landlord hurriedly said. "Wasn't there a blackout in the city last night? In fact, my house is already a bit old, so I was worried about whether there would be any problems, so I came early in the morning to check the circuit and wires and so on. When I arrived at this house, I knocked for a long time, but no one answered. I was a bit worried, so I thought to open the door secretly, intending to have a look. Unexpectedly, I found this thing, alas. It scared me to death. You tell me, why is this thing hidden in my house? Ma Hao nodded. At this moment Lin Feng came over. The landlord should be right. I checked the freezer, and the circuit board was burned. It should be a short circuit caused by the sudden blackout last night. But if not, the thing inside wouldn't have been defrosted. If the smell couldn't be detected, then it shouldn't have been discovered. Ma Hao scratched his head. In other words, we have to thank last night's blackout? Otherwise, I don't know how long this corpse would have been hidden. You can say that. Lin Feng shrugged. Ma Hao rolled his eyes, then looked at the landlord. Who rented this house? The landlord hurriedly said, Oh, it's a young man, his name is Wang Liang. Where is he? Ma Hao suddenly asked sharply. The landlord hurriedly said, Oh, he went back to his hometown during the New Year, but he hasn't checked out. He hasn't come back yet? Lin Feng continued to ask. The landlord shook his head. I don't think so. How can you be so sure? Ma Hao continued to ask. The landlord took out his mobile phone. My leg is not good, so I usually pay the rent directly through mobile phone. Didn't I add Wang Liang as a friend? I saw his post on WeChat Moments. See, he even updated his status the day before yesterday. Oh, right, because I knew Wang Liang wasn't here, and I was afraid that the electrical appliances in his house would burn, so I opened the door to check. I don't have any other thoughts, officer. Do you have the rental agreement? Take it out and compare it. Ma Hao then ordered, Landlord, please go to the police station and provide all the information you know about Wang Liang, and make a detailed statement. Okay. The landlord nodded honestly. Then, Sir Ma ordered Lin Feng, no matter what method you use, find this Wang Liang as soon as possible. Also, get all the surveillance footage from before the New Year and check carefully to see who came in and out during this period. Since the corpse was dismembered, the murderer must have come back here to take away the pieces. Got it. Ma Hao then said loudly. Get some guys to check the surroundings and see if there are any clues. Inside the building, everyone started to get busy. Crimes would not disappear, but this was the first time such a big case had happened since the beginning of the year. It was even rarely seen in the past. Just like what Xiaobao said, they were probably going to be busy. However, there was no such thing as an impenetrable wall, and there would always be a leak. Especially in today's society where people could take short videos. The dismembered corpse case was spreading at an unimaginable speed. People were very curious about Tanzi. They were still talking about the blackout last night, but the dismembered corpse case immediately attracted their attention. Of course, it was only in this city. However, thinking about it, every place had something that could attract people's attention. After all, at some point in time, this era already had the taste of entertainment to death. It was the first class in the afternoon. The lecturer who was in charge of the microphone had many students fans because of his elegant appearance. Most of them were girls. When people or animals feel uneasy or fearful, they will use all means to cover themselves. This action is called masking behavior in psychology. They will cover their eyes with their hands to keep a certain distance from the things in front of them. On the projection screen, there was a picture of a baby tilting his head to avoid the milk bottle. The elegant lecturer's voice sounded slowly, just like a baby, when he is full of milk. He will tilt his head to one side to avoid the milk bottle. At this time, the picture on the projection changed to another one. A man was covering his mouth with both hands and raising his head. His eyes and eyebrows were full of fear. This was taken on the 11th of September in America. Because he was afraid of the tragedy in front of him, he chose this way to protect himself. The elegant lecturer changed the picture again. This time, it was a bloody picture of a throat being slit. Instantly, many girls and even some boys subconsciously covered their faces with both hands. Yes, just like what you are doing now. Unknowingly, the elegant lecturer had been on the stage for a long time. When the bell rang, the students who wanted to continue slowly packed their things. The lecturer was also packing his things at this time. However, probably because the lecturer was too popular, many students still surrounded him after the class and asked all kinds of questions. Until the bell rang for the next class, the students left reluctantly. Just as the lecturer was about to leave, he found that there were 2 students in the classroom at this time, a boy and a girl. The boy and the girl didn't seem to be talking after class. They just kept looking at the podium, or rather, looking at the lecturer. But he didn't have any impression of these 2 students. These 2 students, do you have any questions? The girl glanced at the boy next to her. Seeing that the boy didn't intend to speak, she stood up and smiled slightly. Teacher Gao, I have some questions to ask. I don't know if you have time? Lecturer. Teacher Gao looked at his watch and nodded. I don't have class next class, and I don't have anything to do. Ask away. Under normal circumstances, why would a person suddenly change from a familiar environment and a familiar job to another kind of job? Moreover, their original job is still in the rising stage, and there is still a lot of room for development. Chapter 1174. Mr. Gao quickly gave an answer, but the lecturer also had the reservations of a lecturer. Since it's a normal situation, we need to consider many reasons for this question. For example, is it more beneficial for him to change to a new environment? For example, is he unable to withstand the strictness of his current job and would rather give up a job that seems promising to others than go against his own wishes, and so on? The girl nodded, but asked further, then, is there such a possibility? This man had made a mistake in his original job. He tried his best to hide this mistake, afraid that others would find out. But after a long time, he couldn't stand the reproach of his conscience. He was also afraid that one day, someone would find out about this mistake, so he chose to escape and leave? Gawain smiled slightly. If that's the case, it's possible, and quite a few. Just as I mentioned in class just now, running away from fear is also one of the cover-up behaviors. For most people, it can also be summed up as, running away is shameful, but it's useful. The girl suddenly asked, running away is shameful, but it's useful. Teacher, according to what you said, do you think this is a kind of universal value? Gawain furrowed his brows imperceptibly. He could feel that this female student's questions and words contained a certain directionality. Her intention to approach him was quite obvious. However, he also felt that this question was quite interesting. There were many students in school who were serious about their studies, but there were even more who just wanted to pass the time until they graduated. As for those who truly wanted to do some research at this stage, it was rare to find a phoenix feather or a unicorn horn. The lecturer adjusted his glasses. As a teacher, he needed to consider his words carefully. Not everyone has the ability to think in accordance with their own ideas. We often think much more than what we do, and the things we do are often more complicated than what we think. Running away is a subconscious, even instinctive behavior. I think it can't be summed up in values, and it can't be defined by universal values. The girl continued, but behavior is often the carrier of a person's values, right? For example, heroes can risk their lives to save people, but villains can frame others for small benefits, right? Gawain nodded, but smiled and said, Student, have you ever thought about whether heroes can risk their lives to save people from the beginning? As for the villain, would he be able to frame others without a teacher since he was young? But when you are afraid, you don't need anyone to teach you how to escape. The first 2 were values that had been formed over time, while the second was almost without any judgment. It was an instinctive and spontaneous behavior. The hero you speak of, when he risked his life to save others, he must have gone through a mental struggle. He must have felt fear, but his thoughts overcame his fear. As for villains who harmed others, they would definitely be afraid before they harmed others. They would also consider many unfavorable factors, but their greed overcame their rationality. During this process, there was a process of ideological struggle. Running away was just a kind of behavior, but after running away, the person running away needed a reason to run away so that they could feel safe. Running away is shameful, but it's useful, so is everyone else. I'm just an ordinary person, and so on. The female student glanced at Gao-1 and nodded. So, Teacher Gao, have you ever been like this? After escaping, you used a similar reason to make yourself feel safe? Of course I have, Gao-1 said with a smile. After all, I'm not a saint. The female student nodded. Thank you, teacher. I'm done with my questions. Gawain nodded and said, I hope this can be of some help to you. So, what's your question? Gao-1 looked at the boy beside him. The boy said slowly, Is it difficult to forgive? Gao-1 opened his mouth slightly. This was a question that surprised him. He pondered for a moment before nodding. It's very difficult. It's more difficult than anything else. I think so too. The boy nodded. I'm done with my questions too. After asking his question, the boy turned and left politely. The girl beside him watched in surprise. When she realized that the boy was really leaving, she hurriedly chased after him without saying goodbye to Gao-1. Watching the two students leave, Gawain frowned strangely. He had a feeling that he had seen this boy somewhere before. All of a sudden, Gawain seemed to have realized something, and his expression changed slightly. Wait, this student. However, when he ran out of the classroom, he could no longer see the boy and girl in the corridor. Gao-1 was stunned. Finally, at a memorial service a few years ago, a thin figure holding a photo frame and standing in front of the mourning hall expressionlessly appeared in front of Gawain's eyes. It was as if he had completely isolated himself from the world. He's Loki's son. Wait for me. Song Ying grumbled unhappily as she walked up to Gao-1. Luoqiu stopped and said softly, Are you thirsty? There's a convenience store up ahead. Song Ying said, Why don't you look worried at this time? Also, why did you ask such a question just now? Are you sure he's the murderer? Luoqiu said, You asked him so many questions. Are you sure he's the murderer? Song Ying was asked the right question. She frowned and recalled her conversation with Gao-1. She muttered, It's hard to say. I feel like this guy has a lot of confidence. If he felt guilty, he would more or less act a little unnaturally. But he acted too naturally. Even if I'm a psychology lecturer, isn't he controlling himself too well? If that's the case, isn't it too abnormal if he's too natural? Luoqiu exhaled softly and said in a low voice, Escaping is shameful, but it's useful. What? Song Ying was stunned. She didn't know why Luoqiu suddenly mentioned this. Luoqiu shook his head. Let's call it a day. I still have something to do. I'll contact you later, okay? Song Ying frowned. There are still two suspicious guys. Aren't you going to take a look? Luoqiu said casually, The bus is leaving soon. I'll go first. Seeing Luoqiu walk to the bus stop, Song Ying opened her mouth and stomped her feet. She crossed her arms and was a little angry. What? The eunuch is more anxious than the emperor. Do you think I care? If Grandpa didn't ask me to come, I wouldn't care about you. If you're not going, I'll go myself. At this time, the phone rang. Song Ying picked it up. Miss, we're here. We're at the airport now. There are a total of 8 people here. They're all elite detectives. I'm not happy. You guys run a few laps around the airport before coming out? Beep. The case was very serious. Since the discovery of the body, the Bureau had organized a meeting and set up a case handling team in less than 3 hours. Because the case was so serious and had a serious social impact, the leaders had ordered that the case must be solved in a short time. Team 1 and Team 2 had been summoned, and the preliminary analysis of the case had been completed. After all, within an hour after the incident, the director had personally dealt with this matter. Except for the necessary matters, he had mobilized almost all the forces that could be mobilized. At present, the body is still being pieced together. All the tests have started, but it still takes time. There are no surveillance cameras installed at the crime scene. The nearest camera is at the intersection 200 meters away. It's difficult to extract any useful information. The residents nearby have been checked for the time being, but no useful information was found. The investigators stood up one by one to report. The photos projected in front of them were still the photos taken at the crime scene. There was no change. Gradually, everyone felt helpless. In addition, we haven't found the tenant of the crime house, Wang Liang. Officer Lin stood up and said, "We've contacted his hometown. This part is different from what the landlord said. According to Wang Liang's family, Wang Liang didn't go home before the new year." He didn't go home? Sir Ma and the director were stunned at the same time. Ma Hao then asked directly, "During this period, did Wang Liang's family contact Wang Liang?" "Yes." Lin Feng nodded. According to Wang Liang's father, 2 days ago, Wang Liang talked to him on the phone. He said that Wang Liang had found a new job with a good salary, but he was going to a place far away. He might not be able to go home this year. The landlord said that he went back to his hometown, but the people there said that he didn't come back. That is to say, he's missing? At this time, another man suddenly asked, "Have you investigated Wang Liang's background?" Lin Feng looked over. The man who asked the question was the captain of Team 2, Zhou Yuxing. Because this was a joint investigation, half of the people at the meeting were from Team 2. "Oh, Captain Zhou, we've also investigated Wang Liang's background." Lin Feng nodded. Finally, the content on the projection screen changed. What was shown was an unusual man with ear studs and tongue studs, Wang Liang. Wang Liang, from HT City, 23 years old. After graduating from high school, he came out to work. Before Wang Liang disappeared, he worked as a bartender in a bar. He didn't have a good reputation and had some background in the underworld. He also cheated women of their money several times. There was even one time when a victim reported him to us, but due to insufficient evidence, we didn't file a case. However, before Wang Liang disappeared, he had already resigned. The time was almost the same as when the landlord said that he was going back to his hometown. The director said in a low voice, "Immediately list Wang Liang as an important suspect and arrest him as soon as possible." "Ma Hao, Zhou Yuxing, I'll leave this to you. I have to go back and prepare for a meeting in the city. Remember, there's a time limit to solve the case." Yes. Although they were usually busy, it had been a long time since they had such a big lineup. After the director left quickly, Sir Ma sighed heavily and rubbed his eyebrows. Since the case had been handed over to him and Zhou Yuxing, the captain of the second team, the next step was naturally for the two captains to communicate with each other. After asking everyone to continue the investigation, Sir Ma had time to chat with Zhou Yuxing. In Ma Hao's eyes, Zhou Yuxing was a complete workaholic. Often, after a case, he wouldn't go home for a few days. If Ma Hao unconsciously chose to slack off at work to escape, then Zhou Yuxing was the complete opposite of him. He didn't care about his appearance, and his eyes were bloodshot. In order to refresh himself, he drank cup after cup of coffee. His body probably already had resistance to this kind of refreshing substance. "Sir Zhou, it seems that you have just solved a case, right?" Sir Ma frowned and said, "I heard that you haven't been home for 4 or 5 days. How about this? The dismembered corpse case probably can't be solved in a short time. How about you go home and have a good rest first, and leave it to me?" Zhou Yuxing wiped his face with both hands and shook his head. "I'm fine, I can still hold on. This case is very urgent, and there are already insufficient manpower. If I still rest at this time, it will affect the progress of the case." Ma Hao said, "Sir Zhou, everyone can see that you are very tired now. To be honest, if you are in this state, I will refuse to cooperate with you. If you don't rest, I will report to the management and ask for a change of manpower. This. Zhou Yuxing opened his mouth. Sir Ma sighed and said, Old Zhou, it's a good thing to be conscientious and responsible, but you have to control yourself. You are the leader, and you should take the lead, but you can't fall down. Besides, I heard that you are not well recently, right? Zhou Yuxing was silent. Sir Ma sighed again. I don't mean to interfere with your family affairs, but I am afraid that you will be affected by this matter, and you are overworked. Well, I will rest for half a day. Zhou Yuxing sighed slowly. My team members will be under your command for the time being, and I will come back at night. Tomorrow, you will come back tomorrow morning. Ma Hao knocked on the table. Anyway, it will take at least 1 day to get the report from the forensic department. After Ma Hao's tough attitude, Zhou Yuxing didn't continue to be stubborn. He nodded and left the meeting room. Lin Feng was sorting out the documents at this time and came over and sat down. Sir Ma, it seems that Sir Zhou hasn't slept for at least 3 days and 3 nights. He is really hard-working, worthy of being called the Iron Man in the bureau. Ma Hao shook his head and said, How can a person be made of iron? This guy is not serious about work. He is simply throwing his life away. Now, he is working day and night, and his wife and children are separated. Sigh. Alright, why are you still standing here? I am waiting for Sir Ma's instructions, so I am just casually contacting you. Lin Feng blinked his eyes. Ma Hao didn't blink, but widened his eyes. Go and find Wang Liang. Do you also want to not sleep for 3 days and 3 nights? Right away. Seeing Lin Feng slip away, Ma Hao shook his head. Young people nowadays. He sighed, then took out his phone and put on a dog's head. Hello, wife. Have you eaten? Can't eat? Even if you can't eat, you still have to eat. You have to take care of yourself. I think I have to work overtime tonight. You guessed it? Well, moi. After hanging up the phone, Sir Ma hummed, Look, I am different. When Luoqiu returned to the club, it was almost evening. Miss Maid came over as usual, serving him attentively. However, Taisetsu's eyes were faintly strange, as if he wanted to say something but stopped on second thought, as if he had a lot of questions. Since last night, he was forbidden to leave the club. Of course, not only him, but also everyone in the club, but he didn't stop consulting the outside world because of this. Apparently, the club already knew about the terrible blackout last night. But the boss's expression at this time didn't give him any clue. Or rather, from the beginning, Taisetsu couldn't see Luoqiu's thoughts from his face. Only Miss Maid could guess the boss's thoughts. But, since last night, Miss Maid didn't say a word. Wait a minute, I will go. Luoqiu didn't say what he wanted to say. Instead, he turned his head and looked at the pinewood door of the lobby. The bell rang, which meant that there were guests coming. Chapter 1175. It was a very strange feeling when Luoqiu faced this new customer. He felt a little strange. He was sober and distinctly aware that he was not fit for company these days, but he was almost instantaneously restored to his former state, or, rather, endowed with it. Because of sober and clear reasons, Luoqiu didn't even feel any awkwardness. Instead, he thought it was natural. So he thought it was a strange feeling instead of an awkward one. The degree of assimilation with the club was far beyond his estimation. He looked at the customer in front of him, and a sense of comfort seemed to arise spontaneously, which gradually made him feel that this was where he finally belonged. In an instant, the change of the boss didn't escape Taisetsu's eyes. The Black Soul Envoy was almost equivalent to the boss possession, so the Black Soul Envoy naturally had a very strong perception of the boss. Taisetsu was like this, not to mention Miss Maid. Taisetsu saw a nice smile on Miss Maid's face from last night to now. Suddenly, Taisetsu frowned. Maybe it was just an instinct, but he himself didn't know why. The new customer did not appear as flustered as the usual customers. The new customer was calm and composed, making it easy for others to think that he was a regular customer or someone who possessed certain supernatural powers. But in fact, the new customer was just an ordinary person. He didn't have any extraordinary power, and was definitely not a regular customer. It could only be said that he had a cold temperament. Gray eyes. Boss Luo looked at his eyes, which were black like ordinary people's, but he thought of gray. It was the kind of gray that was forcefully mixed by squeezing a lot of white pigment on black pigment. The new customer, after listening to Miss Maid's business rules of the club, fell into silence. From the beginning to the end, the new customer only asked 3 questions. Where am I? Why am I here? Who are you? Mr. Chen Mingming, do you have any doubts? The boss spoke first. The new customer's name was Chen Mingming. But he didn't introduce himself. The boss directly called out his name. Chen Mingming just glanced at him unexpectedly. He relaxed himself and from now on began to look at everything around. There were all kinds of strange things on the display shelf. Behind the counter, not far away, there was a variety of wine, and an old gramophone and a clock in the corner. Do you know why I'm called Mingming? He suddenly looked at the boss, expressionless, and his lips moved slightly, as if his face was divided into 2 parts. The upper part was static, and the lower part was dynamic. Luochio slightly shook his head, because he knew that Chen Mingming might like him to say it out. When they gave me this name, they wanted me to be clear. Chen Mingming raised his hands and placed them on the table. One should be clear about what is right and wrong. One should be clear about what is right and wrong. Them? The boss suddenly asked. Apart from them, who else has the right to name a child? Chen Mingming indifferently said. Boss Luo nodded. Back to the topic, Boss Luo slightly smiled. Then, customer, you already know the rules. Have you thought about what you want to buy? Gun, give me a gun. Chen Mingming seemed to know what he wanted. A gun that can kill anyone. His request made Taisetsu quite moved, but in this transaction, the Black Soul Envoy was not qualified to speak, because this was not a task to find a customer, and the customer had already come to the boss, which was equivalent to the last step. Boss Luo suddenly changed his sitting position, putting his hands together on his legs. Looking at the collar of Chen Mingming's clothes, there was a small exposed tattoo pattern. But the exposed part was too little, and under normal circumstances, it was difficult to know what the complete pattern was. Mr. Chen, is there someone you want to kill? The boss asked softly after a while. Chen Mingming shook his head. His eyes were still gray. No. I just thought that if there is a time, I can immediately have such a method. Boss Luo nodded. Mr. Chen, there is a prerequisite for selling anything here. We need at least something of equivalent value. For us, Mr. Chen's own ability and all, you are only in the category of an ordinary person. But, as you can see, the existence of this place means that there is an extraordinary existence. We can give you a gun that can kill anyone, but Mr. Chen can't afford the price of this gun. That's normal. Chen Mingming was not disappointed. Instead, he felt that it was very reasonable and nodded. How about this? A gun that can kill anyone I have the ability to kill? In theory, under certain circumstances, an ordinary person can also kill an extraordinary person. Boss Luo slightly smiled. Mr. Chen's definition is a bit too broad. Chen Mingming was silent for a moment, and was about to speak again. But Boss Luo suddenly said, Mr. Chen, I can recommend you a gun that should meet your needs. As he spoke, the boss opened his palm, and a silver pistol, starting from the handle, slowly materialized. The silver was only its luster when it was formed, but when it was completely formed, it became dull. Boss Luo put the silver pistol on the table, and slowly said, This gun is not considered complete yet, it still needs to be infused with your soul to be considered complete. Also, it can't use ordinary bullets, it can only use bullets that you made with your own life, Mr. Chen. My life as a bullet? Chen Mingming seemed to be a little moved. Boss Luo indifferently said, We know that if you really want to kill someone, and I'm talking about the situation where the individual's strength is not too different, as long as you are willing to put in the effort and spend the time, you can always find an opportunity. Mr. Chen, would you deny this saying? Chen Mingming slightly shook his head. Then, use your time as a bullet to kill the person you said you have the ability to kill. How do you determine how much time my bullet needs? When you need to use the bullet, this gun will naturally tell you. How much? Mr. Chen, when you can no longer inject bullets into this gun, we will take back this gun. And at the same time, we will take back your soul. What do you think? You will die when the bullet runs out. Boss Luo slightly smiled. In theory, as long as Mr. Chen doesn't shoot the first bullet, your life will naturally come to an end. After a long time, under the gaze of the boss and the servant girl, Chen Mingming slowly picked up the silver pistol on the table. Until he left Boss Luo, Chen Mingming didn't say a word. At this time, Taisetsu frowned, walked to Luochio's side, and couldn't help but say, "Boss, this guy seems very dangerous. You gave this gun to him, aren't you afraid that he will act recklessly?" "We sell whatever the customer wants to buy," Luochio indifferently said. "Isn't it always like this?" Taisetsu opened his mouth, but didn't say anything in the end. He just nodded and slowly stepped back. Since the owner Luochio didn't think there was any problem, he naturally had no right to refute the boss Luochio. The owner's will couldn't be disobeyed. This was engraved in the deepest part of him when he became a black soul. Yu Yi began to clean up the table. "Master, what did you want to do when you came back?" Luochio shook his head. "I planned to go to the altar, but suddenly I don't want to go anymore. Well, I suddenly want to eat the dinner you cook. I'll prepare it now." The servant girl left with a smile, and her footsteps seemed to be cheerful. The car slowly drove into the parking lot of the community. After parking the car, Zhou Yuxing didn't get off immediately, but sat in the car alone. After adjusting the seat, he lay on the driver's seat and closed his eyes. The engine didn't turn off. About half an hour later, Zhou Yuxing got off the car. He suddenly remembered Ma Hao's words, and began to sniff his clothes. There was indeed a bad smell. How long had it been since he took a shower? "Officer Zhou, you're back?" In the underground parking lot, a middle-aged man just came out of the elevator. It seemed that he was going to drive out. He was probably Zhou Yuxing's neighbor, otherwise, he wouldn't greet him so warmly. "Yes." Zhou Yuxing nodded. Although he remembered his neighbor's name, appearance, and what they had talked about in the past, Zhou Yuxing was not used to the other party's warm greeting. He quickly got away from the neighbor's greeting, walked all the way to his home and opened the door. "I'm going back." Zhou Yuxing shook his head and closed the door. He casually threw the key at the cabinet by the wall at the entrance. Without changing his shoes, he walked straight to the living room and sat on the sofa. "Perhaps it's because I haven't been back for too long." The moment he sat down, some dust suddenly rose from the fabric sofa. He casually turned on the TV, which happened to be the evening news. "Now we have a special news report. This morning, in a self-built house on Longhua Road in our city, a shocking murder case happened." Zhou Yuxing didn't listen to it and turned off the TV. He suddenly remembered that the goldfish at home hadn't been fed, and the water hadn't been changed for a long time. Zhou Yuxing quickly stood up and walked to the fish tank. He found that the silver arowana, which he had raised well, had turned over and floated to the water. Zhou Yuxing quickly reached out to pick up the carcass of the dead fish, but when his hand reached into the water, he remembered that he hadn't pinched up his sleeves. He had no choice but to pull his hand back. However, the buttons on his sleeves weren't as easy to undo as usual. Zhou Yuxing tried a few times, but still couldn't undo them. He suddenly gave up, put his hands on the edge of the fish tank, and immersed his wrists in the water. Suddenly, Zhou Yuxing pushed the fish tank to the ground. The glass shattered, and the water in the fish tank spilled on the ground, wetting his body. The silver arowana didn't move at all because of this. They just lay motionless on the ground. Zhou Yuxing squatted on the ground and looked, and looked. Then, he suddenly stood up, hurriedly took the cleaning tools, and swept away the broken glass and dead fish. Then, he dried the water stains on the floor. Then, he looked at the indoor environment, which seemed to be even worse, and threw away the mop in his hand. Just like that, he stood there and looked at the clock on the wall of the living room, which turned little by little. After a long time, Zhou Yuxing gently hit his forehead and wiped his face. Then, he turned and walked to the door, grabbed the keys, and went out. He went all the way to the garage and drove out. The place Zhou Yuxing went to later was a relatively high-end residential area. He parked the car in front of a 2-story villa near the artificial lake in the residential area and pressed the doorbell. Soon after, the door opened and an elegant man walked out. The man was surprised to see Zhou Yuxing and said in surprise, "Yuxing?" Zhou Yuxing looked at the man in front of him and sighed. "Captain Gao, can I come in and sit? I have a headache." "Captain Gao." Gaowen opened his mouth, then nodded. "Come in first." Gaowen brought Zhou Yuxing into the study and let him sit on a recliner. Then, he moved a chair over and sat beside Zhou Yuxing. "Yuxing, haven't you stopped having headaches in the past few months? Why are they suddenly acting up again?" Gaowen asked with a frown. Zhou Yuxing lay down and gently knocked his forehead with his fist. "I don't know. Captain Gao, can you give me some more of the medicine you prescribed last time?" Gaowen said, "That's just an ordinary sleeping pill. I just want you to rest more. It's not really medicine that can treat headaches. Are you starting to have nightmares again?" Zhou Yuxing shook his head. "No." Gaowen said, "Then I think you're just too tired. When I saw you this morning, I felt like you were about to collapse from exhaustion. Yuxing, what you need isn't medicine, nor is it my treatment. You just need rest." Zhou Yuxing smiled bitterly and said, "Today, I almost quarreled with Ma Haud. He told me to go home and rest." "Go home?" "He went home to rest, but I went home to suffer. How boring." Gaowen patted Zhou Yuxing on the shoulder. "As for the medicine, I don't recommend you continue to take it. However, if it's wine, it's okay. Drinking some red wine will help you sleep. Coincidentally, someone gave me a bottle of good red wine. My wife isn't at home these 2 days. Since you have nothing to do, why don't you have a few drinks with me?" "Sure." Zhou Yuxing's tense face relaxed a little. Seeing that Gaowen had started to open a bottle of red wine to sober up at the small bar in the study, Zhou Yuxing suddenly asked, "Oh right, how has Ming Ming been recently? If you care about your son, why don't you go and take a look yourself?" Gaowen shook his head. "I'm just his teacher, not his father.